This is the November 7th, 2011 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Would the Secretary call the roll?
Jim Frederick. Connie Yoshimura.
Here.
Bruce Phelps. Stacy Dean.
Here.
Terry Parks.
Here.
Dana Pruz.
Here.
Richard Wilson.
Here.
Ray Hickel. Peter Mulcahy.
Here.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting for Monday, September 12th, Monday, September 26th, and October 3rd. If you were not in attendance for those meetings that are reflective in the minutes, then you would abstain. May I have a motion for approval, please? Ms. Dean? Move for approval?
Approval of the minutes, yes.
Okay. Is there a second from Richard Wilson?
Second.
Are there any objections or any corrections to the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, those minutes are approved. Let's move on to item number C, special order of business, executive sessions, disclosures. Commissioner Parks, would you please handle the disclosures?
Mr. Wilson?
I have none.
Mr. McKay?
Yeah, I was not here for case 2011-033 or 2011-037, so I'll need to abstain on those two.
Thank you. Madam Yoshimura?
I was not here for 2011-033 and 2011-037, so I will not be voting on those resolutions for approval.
Commissioner Pruz?
No.
Ms. Deans?
No.
Mr. Phelps?
No.
Okay, let the record show that Mr. Phelps has arrived.
And I have none.
All right, thank you. We have a consent agenda item, so resolutions, I'm sorry, I am on disclosures. No other disclosures. Right, now I need to move on to the interim election of officers, item C2. May I have some motions from the floor, please?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that you be put in the chairman's position.
And that's seconded by Commissioner Wilson. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, I have been elected chair. Thank you very much, I think. Now we need a motion for vice chair. Reconsideration. Is that a motion for vice chair? All right. May I have a motion for a vice chair?
Commissioner Terry Parks.
Okay, for vice chair, is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Stacy Dean. Is there any objection to the motion? All right, thank you very much. Congratulations, Mr. Parks. Okay. All right. Yeah, you think. All right. Moving on to item number D, the consent agenda. I think we should take the consent agenda in with the resolutions first for approval. All right. So I would entertain a motion to approve the entire consent agenda item and then pull those items that commissioners would like to have further discussion and input on. A motion for approval from the consent agenda from Commissioner Wilson, and do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Pruz. Are there items then that commissioners would like to pull for additional discussion and comments? Ms. Dean?
I'd like to pull 4B, case 2011-121.
All right. Any others? Are there any others? Okay. So we should vote on the remaining items that have not been pulled. Are there any objections to the other items? Seeing and hearing none, those items are approved. Ms. Dean? 4B? Do you have comments that you wish to make or questions of staff?
Yes, I do. I was the one who asked for the gurney-sized elevator, and that was added as an item to the request. My question is, now that we've got it back, I would like to hear from the fire department or somebody from a representative of the fire department to tell us, in an emergency situation, how are they going to get the people out of this building? If we have an ADA elevator, that means a 5-foot elevator. I don't know how else they get people out. In this particular situation, we're dealing with people that have a fairly high level of requirement from emergency rooms and medical care. I don't know if it's fair to not have an elevator that can handle a gurney. I'd like to open this up in the committee of the whole, if this is appropriate time to move that into in order to discuss this.
We would need a motion for the committee of a whole, so I'm assuming you're making that motion, so we're going to need a second to that motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Dana Pruse. So we're now in the committee of a whole. There were comments in our packet regarding this issue, so perhaps we could hear at this particular point in time from Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. I apologize. There's nothing in writing from the fire department, but I did speak with them, and there are comments from our ADA officer in Development Services. The Development Services ADA officer was of the opinion that there's simply not a code requirement for it, which I understand that doesn't necessarily answer the question. Fire's response was that they would simply use a conventional stretcher stood up on end as they would in any non-ADA elevator to evacuate someone who is incapacitated. But I'm afraid that's all the information I have about that.
There were comments in the packet that it is physically, structurally prohibitive to have an elevator of that size. And initially, let me ask staff this question. An elevator is not required for a property of this type, is that correct?
Madam Chair, because of the uses located on the second floor, there is no ADA requirement for an ADA elevator. You're correct.
Ms. Dean?
So is the elevator already bigger than a standard elevator would be for this particular situation, or was it always this size in this building?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dean, I'll have to defer to the applicant on that.
I'm not sure if there originally was an elevator. I thought the request was to install an elevator, but I'm not certain about that.
Yeah, all I know is that there was, they were going to put one in.
Right.
That they had offered to put one in from the beginning. So, okay, I'm curious to hear the other commission members if I'm being excessive by discussing this any further, or if the matters dealt with.
We do have the applicant, the petitioner here, so if it's appropriate, we can hear some comments. Okay? Can I do that?
Good evening. Sorry.
The committee of the whole comments should be directed amongst ourselves. Mr. Phelps? And so, therefore, if you would just stay put for 1 second, what we need to do in order to hear from ROLCAP is to come out of the committee of the whole. Does anyone else have any comments regarding, before we come out of the committee of the whole? All right. Seeing and hearing none, then we're out of the committee of the whole. And if you could respond to Commissioner Dean's questions and comments, we would appreciate it.
Yes. My name is Kenneth Scollin, and the last name is spelled Scollan. I'm the division manager for ROLCAP, and I'll be in charge of the project at Carlick Manor. There is no requirement to have an elevator by code in a building of this type. We agreed to put an elevator in. The comments were made at the planning and zoning that we would put an elevator to fit a gurney. It's kind of it does fit a gurney. If it's a gurney standing up, it doesn't fit a gurney laying down. There are some very large structural beams that exist in the building, and there was a letter attached to some of the paperwork that you got from our architectural firm saying that it would be cost prohibitive to remove those beams. It is an ADA compliant elevator. We do have other structures, one other structure on Davis Street that has an ADA compliant elevator on 100 Davis Street, and the fire department has successfully gone in and out of that building and removed people who were disabled, incapacitated, without any issue. Any structure, I think, in Anchorage below 4 stories has this ADA compliant elevator, and there hasn't been issues taking people in and out of that type of structure with an ADA compliant elevator.
Thank you.
I think that's enough information.
All right. Thank you. In the matter of Case 4B, Case 2011-121, what is the wish of the Commission? I need a motion for something. Approval. Does the Commission have further questions? Commissioner Parks.
I make a motion that we approve.
Okay, is there a second? There's a second from Commissioner Wilson. Is there an objection? Seeing and hearing no objections, that case is approved. Moving on to the regular agenda, resolutions for approval. Can we do resolutions? We did. All right, so we're now into the regular agenda. I'm sorry. We've done the consent agenda. We've done this. We've done all this. Yeah, we're other. All right, moving on to the regular agenda, F5A, case 2011-113, MOA CIB, capital improvements, 2012 capital improvement budget, and 2012 through 2007 proposed capital improvement program. This is not a public hearing. May we hear from staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Commission is being asked to review and make recommendations to the Assembly regarding the 2012 capital improvement budget and the 2012 to 2017 capital improvement program. The Planning Division has provided several comments in the memo to the Commission and also has attached to the memo a summary of projects that are new to the CIP this year, and also attached are comments received from the Turnagain Community Council. Christine Chestnut from the Office of Management and Budget is here if the Commission wishes to get an overview of the project. Gary Jones from Public Works is also here to answer questions about any road projects that are in the CIP this year. And that would conclude the planning staff report.
All right, may we hear from the other staff members that you have that are here for us?
Good evening, I'm Christine Chestnut from the Office of Management and Budget, as he said. Do you have any questions for me, or?
Perhaps you could just elaborate a little bit, give us a little overview for, we have some relatively new commission members, and this will be their first capital improvement budget.
Okay. If it's okay, I'd like to maybe add a couple comments to the memo that was written here. I believe that the attachment 1 is the additions to the CIB, meaning, can't hear me? These attachment 1 are additions to the CIB, not the CIP, meaning it's only pertaining to the 2012 year. That was one thing that I wanted to make sure was understood for roads only. Also, as much as I'd like to be able to distribute a draft of the capital budget as early as possible to you, we do not release the budget until October 1. The mayor releases the budget to the Assembly first, and by code, October 1st is the first day that we can release the budget. So I just wanted to make note of that, and maybe if there's any way that you still only have until December 6th, approximately, unless it goes on further, to make recommendations before it's approved. And I understand that's a short window, but I wanted to make sure it's clear that we do not distribute the budget until it's been distributed to the Assembly.
Other questions from the Commission regarding the budget or the process? Commissioner Cruz.
Yeah, I'd just like to state what I mentioned earlier when you came up the first time, is that I do appreciate the information on the capital projects. However, I feel fairly lacking on being able to make any recommendations because we're basically seeing the process here. A lot of work and effort by a lot of folks, the communities and the administration, and so far be it from me to make any kind of recommendation without the background and understanding how it went into it and how it was prioritized. So I do appreciate the information and understanding what's coming out, but I just feel a little bit chagrined, I guess, to make a recommendation to change something with so much work in it at this time without having the background.
Other Commission comments?
Can I make one more comment?
Yes.
Also, I noticed that there was one community council response, attachment 2, from Turnagain Community Council. I did pose the question as to why only this community council survey was attached in this, because there are several that have been returned to us. And I was advised that it was the only one put in for public comment or something in your process. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware that all of the community council surveys that we have received in the Office of Management and Budget from the community councils are posted on our webpage. and they're available there, and they clearly identify additions and deletions of projects in there and what their ranking and priority is. It doesn't satisfy what you're saying, and I understand that, but I wanted to make sure that it's understood or known that those resources are available on our webpage. If you go to the OMB's department webpage, there's a community council link, and it has the history from, I want to say 2006 forward, of all of the community council surveys that are ranked and returned to us, too.
So, are there any other questions? Then I have a question. So, could you expand a little bit more on your outreach? Because I think that might help some of us better understand the process. And then, secondly, in the past, this commission has had a committee member or had a member of the capital improvement project budget, and what are their opportunities to participate prior to October 1st?
We actually start the capital budget process we actually distribute the projects that we currently have in our capital budgets to the community councils, and I believe we did it early this year in March, knowing that they only meet so many times before we develop the capital budget. So we actually started pulling together the information and putting it on display in March. The first place that it goes is the community councils for their meetings and their decisions and their prioritizations. And then basically those are posted on our webpage as well. And they have the opportunity to reply and give us any additions, deletions, as I said before, and their priorities there. And they're posted as well. Public Works, Project Management and Engineering Department also provides a response to them, letting them know maybe why we're not able to add this project at this time. That hardly has happened, but it's a response to their projects and their ranking, saying, hey, we may be building this road, so that's why this road comes next. And I would think that that would be very good information for planning. And then, of course, tomorrow night is our second meeting with the Assembly, and I believe this is the first public hearing on Tuesday on the capital budget for the public to come and express their views or rankings or projects that they want to advise on. And we have one more on the 22nd or 23rd, I believe, and hoping for approval on December 6th.
And so if a commissioner elects to serve on this particular committee, what would be their opportunity to be informed of meetings that they could attend? So,
I guess
is there, yeah.
How does the information get out as to when public could come to testify? Is that what you're asking? Or
I'm wondering if there are work sessions or other opportunities for commission members to be advised of some of this information.
Yes, actually, there was a work session last Friday
Okay.
that the
Yes.
Assembly schedules, and it is available on the Assembly schedule, their work session schedule, and it was on the capital budget on Friday.
So if you send out this information in March to the community councils, would it be possible perhaps sort of following up on what Commissioner Pruz has suggested, that we could have a work session in March after this information has become public and has gone out to the community councils?
A work session prior to the community councils being able to see what's
No,
already...
just shortly thereafter at this,
Sure. We are still receiving responses from the community councils at this time. I think it would be very early in the capital budget process, but it would be a good view of what we're starting with, and then maybe it would be easier for you to be able to track projects and how things are being funded. We also receive our legislative funding at the end of June. So that makes a big impact on our capital budget as well, because we are actually getting confirmation of projects that may be funded that we don't need to ask for more funding this year. So there is a lot of construction in the capital budget between March and October when it's introduced.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments?
Madam Chair?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Wilson. First.
Following up on that, I wonder whether it wouldn't be appropriate to ask this. From March till October, what is the pace of comments you get from the community councils? And do they usually get it to you by summer or?
We ask by June 1st.
June 1st?
Just because we know that usually they don't meet during the summer months, so we would hope that they get the opportunity to be able to reply by June 1st. But we're happy that they cooperate at any time and we get their input at any time. So I'm still receiving them. So.
Well, logistically, would it be a reasonable time for this commission to get a little work session on sometime after the June 1st deadline, so that we can have the benefit of some of the community's comments along with the briefing on the 6-year plan?
Sure.
Commissioner Mulcahy, and first let me apologize. I didn't see Commissioner Wilson and Mulcahy in the queue. I was looking at the other side of the screen, so my apologies.
Totally
All right.
fine, Madam Chair. I totally agree with Commissioner Prue's comments earlier about coming in at this stage of the game with recommendations. But I think we're going to vote on this one way or another. So is it appropriate for me to ask a few questions just to have a better understanding so that when people say, why'd you vote, I can say.
Absolutely.
I guess it would be to the staff that, can I get a little explanation on the other category and what that means?
And you're asking me? Or
how does that work? Do I just ask directly to the chair?
Through the chair, yes.
Through the chair?
Mm-hmm.
The other funding source is composed of operating budget contributions. It also consists of, why am I drawing a blank right now? Operating budget contributions, loans, and that is it. That is it.
I guess there's a couple times when I would think that would need to be a little more elaborated on. We're looking at, for this information technology department, $3 million, if I read that correctly. That's just other. I don't have $3 million in my pocket. I'd kind of like to know where that came from. I don't know if that's something that can be elaborated on, or if that's something that the.
And you might find more answers to that in the 6-year fiscal plan. And we do have a lot of IT projects right now that are being deployed and for efficiencies. And most of those are through a loan that she could elaborate on that for you.
I don't know we need $3 million worth of IT. That's just kind of like to know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. And is that for the current? Yeah, that's the current. Yep.
Again, just from my education, if you don't mind, there's a couple different times when we talk about matching programs, and that lists projects that are listed individually elsewhere. Just again, so I understand why a lot of these projects are listed twice. They're enumerated under the matching programs. I think we have like the pavement rehab matching program, the drainage matching program, and there's a list of projects underneath there. But then those projects, for the most part, with one or two exceptions, are also listed individually as projects. Just so I can understand how that accounting is working. Are those funds double counted or included, or how that works?
No, and that would be more appropriate for Gary to answer.
Fine with me.
Go ahead.
My name is Gary Jones. I'm Public Works CIP Coordinator, Madam Chairman. Commissioner Mulcahy, we have a number of programs that you've identified there, and We have found it a very attractive way of obtaining funding for many needed projects by having the matching program where we match bond funds with state grants. Assembly members like that, state legislators like that. What we have done is, it's not a double dipping. It's, if we get, say, pavement rehab, these are some of the streets that we're looking at. Separately, yes, we do ask for funds for those as well. But the hope is one way or the other, we will get them because they're needed projects. Does that answer your question?
You're just making sure all bases covered.
Yeah.
Whichever way the legislature decides to come down, we're happy as long as we get the money. Okay, I think I can understand that one. I'm not sure who can address this one, but kind of only place I saw these specific words was on the Tableland subdivision, where it says we're addressing deficiencies on the part of the developer. And I guess I understand that if the city has taken ownership of this property and there's problems there, we have to. But we've identified deficiencies on part of the developer. What other actions are being taken in that case?
I am not intimately involved, but I believe our legal staff is involved in this. But in the meantime, because who knows how long that may take, that process, the assembly people in that area and the state legislators believe that the homeowners in the subdivision need an immediate remedy. And that's why we're pursuing the funding.
Okay, I think I understand. Yeah, the homeowners shouldn't be the victims of the mistake there, but I'm hoping that if this was negligence or something, that some other action is being taken to remedy that.
I believe it is.
Kind of sanctions for future, if nothing else. My own, again, I apologize. This is a lot more to digest than I anticipated. I should have gotten a lot of these questions to you prior to tonight's meeting. But on the, I got to ask this, on the Moose vehicle crash mitigation, what is an electric mat? We're installing an electric mat. Are we warming the Moose feet as they cross the street there?
Where do you see that project?
On the Glen Highway Moose vehicle crash mitigation, page 368.
Okay, is that a state route project? I think it's something that Department of Transportation is planning.
So it's the state's electric mat.
Commissioner Cruz has knowledge of this.
Okay, that'd be great. What's an electric mat?
Well, they started doing it in Wyoming and New Mexico. My understanding is they actually put wires under the pavement on a crossing, and when the animal comes up to it, it feels a little nudge, I suspect, that it won't cross the road, won't cross the intersection, and they do it underground, and then they also have wire fence they put up with the same deal. Only it's like a wire mesh fence.
So it'll also keep kids from crossing the road.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So, but it does work quite well in the lower 48, and I think Alaska is just starting to recognize its value, and I see DOT is starting to do on intersections where they may have a fence, but the access road is open to the main highway. The animal could get on the right of way that way, and so this would be a way to stop it.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Last one, and I apologize for bringing this on, but on page 387 we had Son of Downtown Curb Bulb Project, and the explanation there didn't help me any. What is our Son of Downtown Curb Bulb Project?
Now, that title was also given to us by DOT. It's part of their Highway Safety Improvement Program, in which corridors or intersections are looked at and identified as unsafe. And so this is a plan to construct improvements to enhance safety in those areas.
But you're not sure what a curb bulb is. It's just a safety enhancement of some sort.
Well, curb bulb out is where at intersection the curb line will toe in, so that for a driver of a vehicle, it's a form of traffic calming. as you see the road narrow, you
Yep.
instinctively want to slow down.
No, and now-
So that's
now-
what a curb bulb out
what
is.
you're talking about. Thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got the picture. It just didn't click when I read that curb. All right, thank you very much. That's all.
Are there any other questions? And was there another staff person here? Or was- Right. On case 2011-113, do we have a motion? Commissioner Dean?
In the matter of case 2011-113, I move to approve.
And its motion was seconded by Commissioner Parks. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Phelps.
Yeah, I must admit that it's very difficult for me to take any sort of informed action on this particular item. There is just so much information there that, frankly, I don't feel competent to review all the information, evaluate, and come up with a recommendation that makes any sort of sense. I really wonder if it really is appropriate to even ask the Planning Commission to approve a document of this nature. I mean, certainly it would make sense to have the opportunity to review it and, if necessary, recommend changes to it. But I really think it's asking a bit much, in my opinion, to approve a document of this type. That's my point of view.
I think that a point of view has been expressed by many in terms of a level of frustration for a document as important to the municipality of Anchorage and without appropriate time for participation and review. Nevertheless, I believe we are obligated to take action on this.
I guess that'd be a question of staff. I know we have the obligation to review it. I don't know if we have the requirement to recommend the approval or disapproval, however.
All right, can we hear from staff?
Madam Chair, I don't have my Title 21 with me right now, but it's, I know it's listed in there as one of the duties, powers and duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission, to review and recommend. Right. On the CIP.
Commissioner Wilson.
Along those lines, I was kind of concerned a little bit too because of the, I'd like to be able to act, but lacking enough briefing and material and time to review, and kind of late in the process compared to what we would like to be informed. Is there a way to non-object? Just vote to non-object unless there is an objection on the commission.
I would have to ask our secretary. Please tell everyone.
I think that what you can do, you're required to do a motion to approve. You could make an amendment. It's, in this case, you're making a recommendation. You're not approving it necessarily. You're making a recommendation for approval. The one thing that you could do is amend that approval to be that you have no objection to it, as opposed, so you wouldn't be voting like abstaining from it. You would just be clarifying that you're forwarding it on to the assembly with no objection. So you're recommending, so at the moment it's a recommendation for approval, so you would need to do a friendly amendment or an actual amendment. We don't do friendly amendments, excuse me. Do an amendment modifying the motion in that way.
Make a motion to amend the motion?
I believe you have to go through the process of approval and then motion to amend after that. Is that correct?
No.
Right.
And then you approve that amendment.
You take the amendment up first, and then you take the main motion later.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, may I make a motion?
Yes.
I move to amend the motion to state that the Commission will, instead of approving the proposed action, that it would express, would say that it does not object to the approval of this proposed action. Is that right? Help me out with my...
Well, I liked that verb you used, which was reviewed, that we had reviewed it.
So
okay. So
you're approving forwarding it to the assembly with no objection.
With no objection.
I so move.
Okay.
So skip yours and do that, huh?
Right. And do we have a second? And it is seconded by Terry Parks. Do we have any other comments? We have on the amendment. All right, seeing and hearing none, that amendment then is approved. So now we are to the main motion. Do I still have people in the queue? Mr. Phelps, are you still in the queue? Do you have more comment? Okay. All right. Do we have a main motion?
I think you're right.
Okay. Just, you don't have to talk to me. You can
Right.
talk to everyone.
I just need to let you know.
All right.
The main motion is as modified by Mr. Wilson, and that's what we're voting on now, which is approval to forward with non-objection.
Right.
And do we have a motion? It's already there. I don't see it. Hang on just a second. Let me see if I can get it back up on the screen. It's my computer.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's the original motion.
Yes.
All right.
And so
It's moved and seconded. And do we have any objection? All right. We're done. Thank you. All right. We are now moving on to the public hearing. And this is the procedure by which the public may speak to the commission at its meetings is, 1, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. 2, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules of procedure. Petitioners, including all his/her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for a rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs have 5 minutes, individuals 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. Any individual may request written findings from any commission decision within 7 days. So we're now into public hearings, case 2011-091, the petitioner Fred Meyer Stores, Inc., and the Kroger Company. And may we hear from staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Fred Meyer store is located within a neighborhood commercial center. The renovation of the Fred Meyer store is primarily an interior remodel. Exterior changes include possibly some changes to the signage. More on that later. They are going to do a new color scheme for the exterior of the building, new painting. They are going to relocate the pharmacy drive-through aisle. They will also be enclosing the existing open-air storage area on the west perimeter, adding landscape planters or islands at the south ends of some of the parking aisles, rows, They are also going to overlay and restripe some of the parking fields and creating a pedestrian path linking Victor Road to the store entry. In terms of whether the petitioner meets the requirement to spend up to 10% of the cost of expansion in moving towards compliance with the large retail establishment standards, with the new entries they are doing, the new sidewalk, facade painting, landscape improvements, and they do meet that requirement. One of the primary items the Commission should be aware of is the close proximity of a multifamily residential development to the south of the store to the rear. If you look on page 21, there's a photograph that shows the rear of the Fred Meyer store and the adjoining residential development. As for outdoor storage and display areas, the code reads that commercial trailers, shipping containers, and similar equipment used for transporting merchandise shall remain on the premises only as long as required for loading and unloading operations and shall not be maintained on the premises for storage purposes. There are several commercial trailers parked on site. During a site visit, there were 6 trailers parked on the west side of the building and 1 trailer on the east side. Staff spoke to store personnel and learned that these were being used for merchandise. If you look at the aerial photos in the packet, there are 2 aerial photos taken at 2 different times, and they do show those commercial trailers parked on site. So they will have to discontinue that use. In terms of trash collection and snow storage and delivery, we have received comments from the public that are in your packets where people who live in that adjoining residential development have complained about the noise from sweeper trucks, snow plowing, and delivery trucks occurring during all hours of the night and early morning. Fred Meyer Store has requested an administrative parking reduction from Development Services Division. Excuse me, this has been approved for a parking reduction up to 10%. The petitioner has agreed to provide a pedestrian walkway from Victor Road to the building. Regarding exterior signs, there is some confusion concerning whether any new signage is going to be provided for the store. Their submittal reads that there is new signage and graphics are planned at the building's entryway, emphasizing historical and local imagery. There is nothing in the packet, and when staff spoke to the representative for Fred Meyer, they were unaware of any changes to signage, so perhaps their representative could tonight let us know whether or not there is new signage planned. There are no changes planned for the lighting in the parking lot. That will remain as is. The department recommends approval of the large retail establishment site plan review, subject to the 9 conditions on pages 14 and 15.
Are there questions from staff, from the commissioners for staff? Mr. Phelps?
Yeah, I'm looking at the diagram, this diagram that I'm holding up. Where is that new walkway area? I find one area identified where it says new pedestrian walkway, but is there an extension of that walkway to a external location?
Yes, if you look at it, it comes where the, through the chair, Mr. Phelps. If you look at Victor Road, where their driveway is off Victor Road, just to the south of that, they show a island at the end of that parking lot. So really what they're providing is a sidewalk at that parking, at the end of that drive aisle. And then that will lead to the sidewalk they're putting around the building. So you see that curb cut, and then they will walk around there. The issue with this is that they have existing fencing around their garden center area. And if you look at the site plan, you can see on that one corner, it's very, very narrow there. So it may be only 2 or 3 feet wide, making it really narrow for someone to walk around that edge. So that is something the petitioner is going to have to look at to make sure there is adequate space to make that corner where that fencing is. And there is the picture of the fencing in your packet.
I have one additional question, and it has to do with the proposed building expansion. By that I mean the actual enlargement from the existing structure of the building. And what I'm getting is that it's very limited, and it's limited specifically to this area that says proposed building expansion, and it's stippled a gray pattern.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
It says average daily trips for Victor Road is 10,000 versus 30 to 40,000 for Diamond. In being a user of that Victor Road access quite a bit, I've noticed it gets kind of tangled up and it's a little bit unsafe. I just wondered whether that was addressed anywhere and I missed it in here.
No, it wasn't addressed. Victor Road is due for an upgrade to the roadway. I believe they're going to start construction this summer, and it will include improvements to the road and the sidewalk. But I'm sure they would have looked at that, whatever, turning movements or whatever they could to alleviate any of that as part of that new design.
Yeah, a lot of the traffic leaving Fred Meyer and turning on to Victor Road turns right onto Victor Road. It seems like most of the traffic does that for some reason. And it might be good to suggest that a turning lane be reserved for the people coming from Fred Meyer. It's quite a heavy traffic at certain times of the day.
I can check with project management engineering and find out if they have that as part of the new design for the road.
Anything else, Commissioner Wilson? All right. Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you. On the division recommendations, item number 7 on page 15, you recommend that the hours of trash pickup, snow plowing, and delivers be restricted to the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Friday, and then 8 a.m. through 10 p.m. on weekends, holidays. A couple questions regarding this. First, does the establishment tell the trash folks when to come to the dumpster, or is it other way around? How does it work in the municipality?
To the chair, Mr. Cruz, I believe that anyone can designate, when you would like your trash pickup. I think if it's in the middle of the night, that would be pretty unusual. I would think that they're doing it during the working hours, but I'm not certain on that question.
Okay. And then on snow plowing, I noticed there's no reference to removal. So is it your anticipation that removal could be done other than these hours?
It would be snow plowing and removal during those hours.
Okay.
And that's not unusual when you have a residential development living so close. We've had this condition before when we have adjoining residents.
Well, it doesn't say removal, it just says plowing.
Then I would advocate that you all change that to include removal also.
So from a functional standpoint, with plowing and removal, I can see the logic in removing during these hours. But I have to ask you about the logic about plowing during when the customers are coming and going from the establishment, and that safety that presents. I think from a noise creation standpoint, the removal is the noisier part with the trucks and the loaders versus the plowing, and then typically the parking lot's used during the business hours. It's not really much free to plow until the establishment, usually establishments are closed. So the question I have is, would it make more sense to not allow removal, restrict removal to these hours, but allow for plowing with the pickups after business hours from a pedestrian safety standpoint?
Mr. Priest, I've not noticed actual plowing during hours that the store is open, because that I think would cause a safety with cars driving in and cars driving out, and they're trying to plow snow and people are walking in areas where they're trying to plow. My experience is that they try and get that done before the store opens in the morning and not try and do it while they're open. But that's subject to
when would they do that based on these hours then?
During the night and before they open early in the morning.
But your recommendation here doesn't allow that.
And that's because they're open a longer period of time, right?
Well, you can only plow between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m.
Right.
And I mean, all the businesses I know.
You're right. I am reading that, and I see what you're talking about now. Yes, that they should have the snow plowing and removal during the evening hours. You're right. I didn't catch that earlier.
Well, I think the removal is the noisy part. If it's a noise issue, that typically the removal, the piles are further away from the establishment in corners, and that probably could be fairly safely engaged. But the plowing part I worry about during the business hours, and I don't. Most establishments don't want a plow showing up when their customers or people are walking back and forth. I mean,
You're right. Yes.
It's just. So what would you recommend as a change in verbiage on that?
I would say the hours of trash pickup and deliveries shall be restricted to the hours of 7 through 10 p.m. and then snow plowing and removal restricted from 10 p.m. through 7 a.m. Or would be allowed through. No, would be restricted. No. Yeah. Well, you're right.
Well, if I may suggest that maybe it should read the hours of trash pickup and snow removal and deliveries shall be restricted to these hours, and don't say anything about snow plowing at all.
Okay. Snow removal. Yes, thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Mm-hmm. That's all I have.
I have a question on that same page addressed to staff. On item number 6, it says commercial trailers and shipping containers shall not be maintained on the premises for storage purposes. I guess my question is how are you going to police that?
Well, in point of fact, it would be difficult for us to police that. It would only, when this sort of thing comes up, we would be responding to a complaint from someone in the neighborhood, and then we would send out code enforcement, and they would find out if there are trailers on it, and then code enforcement would take it from there.
I guess my concern with a large commercial activity like Fred Meyer, they're going to have trucks in there all the time that are going to be moving things in and out of, and they may not be able to take all of it in their warehouse in a single day. I'm familiar with that site, and I don't believe they ought to be allowed to sell out of those containers. But I think that for us to say and restrict to them to saying they can't use it as storage if they don't have room for it, how long? 24 hours, 48 hours? I can see this getting to be a real issue. And someone who has some Connex containers on their lots, that would be an issue for me. Sometimes they're empty, sometimes they're full, and who's going to tell? And I think we're creating an issue that is not going to be enforceable.
Through the chair, Mr. Parks, this condition comes straight from the code. The code now reads that you're allowed to have your trailers there during the time it takes to unload the trailers or load the trailers. But after that loading or unloading operation is completed, then the expectation is that your trailer is removed from the site. They're not allowed to stay there for storage purposes, and they are keeping them there for storage purposes.
Has this been a problem on this site before? Is that the issue?
They have been doing it for quite some time. We've got aerial photos showing trailers there.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I have the same type of concern on item number 6, and I guess explain to me why it's not a good idea to have storage containers on site. My understanding is they're storing stuff for a short period of time, and I don't understand why that's necessarily a public safety or public use issue.
Through the chair, Mr. Phelps, what I understand from their employees is what they're doing there. They're storing merchandise in there. Instead of having a warehouse that they would keep excess merchandise in, they're actually storing them in these trailers on site for the garden center, and they're also storing shelving fixtures in another trailer that's on the east side of the store. The extra shelving material is stored in there, and their trailers on the west side of the store are used for garden merchandise and other things.
But why is that inappropriate?
Because you would have these trailers sitting there just, 365 days a year.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Parks and then Mr. Pruse.
I guess my question, in B3, it's my understanding that you can have trailers for storage on your lots. Is that not correct?
Through the chair, Mr. Parks, I think I might be able just to say that this is a standard in the large retail establishment. If you all have your code there, or I can read from the code, but
if you just give me the citing, that would be fine.
Okay. I have it here. In fact, you all can read it. It's on page 8 of the packet. Under F, outdoor storage or display areas. It's towards the end of that first paragraph where it begins commercial trailers. That whole paragraph comes directly from the code.
Got it.
Commissioner Phelps, Commissioner Pruse, and then Commissioner Phelps.
A couple points on this trailer issue is that it's your large box retail or even grocery stores have been known to use it as obviously storage. I've seen 30, 40 trailers parked for weeks, months at a time. But I think more importantly, what you have to understand, that trailers also have air conditioning, coolers, or heat units on it that run off diesel, and they run 24 hours a day. So when produce or something comes in and the vendor wants to store it in a trailer on the lot, that diesel engine is going to be running 24/7 on the trailer. And so I think that's probably precipitated why it's for loading and unloading, because the differentiate what type of trailers, dry storage, cold storage, warm storage, it would get pretty intense trying to figure out which is what. But there has been other vendors have tried to use the vans as the same reason why the Connexes. You can only have so many Connexes on your property. There's a code for that too. to alleviate the commercial storage.
Yes, and if I may, just to add to what Mr. Pruse was saying, is that city regulations in terms of vehicle storage considers that industrial use. Allowing trailers to be stored continuously with a retailing creates what's in fact a vehicle storage industrial use.
Commissioner Phelps.
Yeah, I'm on the same item again, number 6. What I'm wondering is if the recommendation 6 can be replaced with the actual wording on page 8 under F, last sentence of the first paragraph, where it says commercial trailers, shipping containers, and similar equipment used for transporting merchandise shall remain on the premise only as long as required for loading, unloading operations, and shall not be maintained on the premises for storage purposes. If that's out of code, why can't we simply reference that?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay.
Are there any other comments from or for staff? Okay. Commissioner Wilson.
Going back to the access, ingress and egress to the whole complex, I looked at the Victor Road thing, and of course we don't know what the design is for the revised Victor Road design, but I had suggested that a right turn lane be added, or see if we could fit that in. It may not fit into the right-of-way width, but if it can, I've noticed how three-lane configurations can really be more efficient, and maybe that's an option for going both directions, turning right onto Victor from Fred Meyer and turning left onto Victor, and so that it can weave into the traffic without waiting on both lanes to clear, which causes backups all the way back up to the entrance, the pedestrian entrance to the store itself. So I just wanted to clarify that some kind of a configuration that accommodates both right and left turn lanes. The second point is that there is quite often a long queue that lines up to exit, actually to come in and to leave, at the other main entrance over on Diamond. That part of the property is off of the property limits of this parcel, I gather. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
It says not a part on there. I suspect it's not a part of the parcel under
That's
consideration. In that parking lot, since there are no barriers, and I must confess that I myself fall prey to, I will take advantage of a shortcut across that parking lot if there aren't cars there, but I find that I often have to compete with others who are doing the same thing. I guess what I'd say is that maybe slow us down by putting some guiding barriers of some kind on the parking lot that is off-site. And that way you can at least guide the traffic better going toward that exit. But the other issue is the queuing off that exit is very, very long, and it clogs up everything in front of the Burlington Coat Factory area and everything. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but it is a problem. Perhaps we can ask staff to pass on to the design folks. I don't know whether we have any authority over that property in this case. Probably not. But is there any way for the designers to take a look at that, and for us to kind of put it on a peg in case something comes up on the other property where we can address that? Thanks.
Ms. Ferguson, would you care to respond to Commissioner Wilson regarding this matter?
Madam Chair, I can pass on those comments to PM&E, but as they're off-site, if this was a brand-new store that we were considering, then yes, we'd have more flexibility in looking at off-site traffic circulation. But being the store is obviously already there are limitations in dealing with what happens on Diamond. But Victor Road, there might be some possibility at this juncture, as you mentioned earlier, if it falls within the right-of-way.
Maybe a double left lane or something to get more cars out of the parking lot. Some method. There are a lot of techniques. Thanks.
So if Victor Road is planned for improvement next year, is that correct, in 2012? Then
Yes.
I would assume that the design
It's already, yes.
the design is already complete.
But no doubt they looked at this and surveyed it and are well aware of the conditions turning into or leaving from Victor Road.
But I did notice that there was no need for a TIA, but yet we've spent quite a bit of time here discussing traffic issues.
Yes, we didn't anticipate that this store improvements would attract any more traffic than the store already receives.
It's hard for me to understand why someone would spend $3 million without the hopes of attracting more customers.
You might ask that question of the petitioner, but I just think the store is due for an overhaul, a facelift, and that's what they're doing, interior and exterior.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Okay. May we hear from the petitioner?
Thank you. My name is Robert McNeil. I'm the senior planner with Barkhausen Consulting Engineers. We have been working as part of a project team with Fred Meyer Stores and Mulvaney G2 Architects to put this site plan and the interior remodel before you. I won't go through a lot of the same stuff that Sharon has already gone through, other than to say that the crux of the project started out primarily as what we call a within-the-walls remodeling. Easily, the vast majority of the expenditures were directed at that aspect of the project. The exterior improvements that were identified are directly related to the interior remodeling, specifically the relocation of the pharmacy drive-through lane, and also the expansion of the building footprint by about 4,000 square feet. Both of those areas of expansion, including the relatively minor 200 and some odd square feet by the pharmacy and the remaining 3,800 square feet on the west side of the building, are already areas that are, quote, under roof. The one area in particular on the west side, the larger area, is basically a fenced-off walkway that has been used for storage. But because it is exposed to the elements, those opportunities were somewhat limited for storage of additional merchandise. And the process started out with the idea of adding additional storage space for the interior merchandise. Regarding the parking, we have added parking stalls. We've revised the existing parking configuration to the point where we are roughly about 9.3% as far as our administrative parking reduction. We have added landscape planters at the end of the aisles to define the parking right by the store. We've also added some on the north side of the parking rows in the northwest parking field. We have not done so yet on the main parking field to the north toward Diamond, because that is the area of snow storage and snow removal, and that has some effect on the operation of that process. I have several colleagues here tonight from the real estate development section, Mr. Tom Gibbons from Fred Meyer, and the project manager on Kroger Facility Engineering, Mr. Mike Van Kirk, is here. They can address some specific issues. We also have Brian Peters from Mulvaney G2 if there are any questions about the interior remodeling itself. The last two elements of the exterior improvements are basically the sidewalk, which will be ADA accessible around the 3 sides of the building, west, north, and east. And we have provided the pedestrian path that will also be ADA accessible, connecting the store entrance and that sidewalk to Victor Road. At staff's request, we are also planning on providing a striped crosswalk across that same driveway at Victor. I have colleagues, again, as I mentioned, Mr. Gibbons and Mr. Van Kirk, who would like to address specifically a couple of the issues that you've been talking about here regarding the deliveries and time of those deliveries, and also the issue of storage containers.
If I may stop you for just 1 minute, you have 6 minutes and 25 seconds remaining, and if you please let me know if you would like to save some time for rebuttal.
I think that would be a good idea. Save a couple minutes. I should be pretty brief. My name's Tom Gibbons. I'm the Director of Real Estate for Fred Meyer, and I think it'd be important for me to just touch bases on a couple things, the storage containers and the hours of operation. I think that was a good recommendation to amend the condition that we would abide to the current regulations, because obviously that's what we want to do. I'd like to the commissioners to know that we've been challenged for years on containers, and what we use is they're not there, permanently. Every once in a while, I guess, when Ms. Ferguson mentioned that there was a container for shelving, that's rare. Normally, the containers are used for seasonal sales events that come in, things like furniture that are large and big, and they're running a sale on. For Thanksgiving turkeys, we sell a lot of turkeys, and the sailings are very limited. And one of the things Fred Meyer has been so successful since we started business here in 1975 was being able to keep our inventory product on the shelves. And it's been very, very important. Other retailers haven't been so successful, but we've been focused. If you look at Kmart, when they added their food and their groceries, within a year it took them out of Alaska, and that was part of the reason. But one of the things that we are tending to do is to move that storage space off premises. And Anchorage literally does not have warehouse space. I spent a couple years trying to find, we were going to do a distribution center, and there wasn't a facility available, and there wasn't land to build one that would accommodate what we needed to do. And then when a facility or two did come online, it was more expensive than retail space. It was, we couldn't, get it to pencil. But we understand, that it's something that's going to be needed to address, and we're going to address it. The second thing that I wanted just to touch bases with, and I'll be glad to answer any questions on either of these issues, is that on the hours of operation on deliveries for the trucks, it's again something that's beyond our control. We can control when trash is, picked up and removed, and I know that does make a lot of noise, and so we can control that, and we can also control, when the snow is removed. But the deliveries here, when they show up, they show up. And we don't really have control over it. It's a problem we face in the state, and it's very frustrating. Over 65% of the cost of our distribution are the 11 stores in Alaska over all of our stores. I mean, that's what a challenge, distribution is for us. One thing that I can do is that I know the diesel noise from those refrigerations is annoying. What we can do is, and we did this on Lower Hillside, is install electrical outlets so it runs on electricity, and you don't get the fumes, and it's a lot quieter. That's something that I would like to at least propose for your consideration. With that said, I've probably used a lot of my time, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
You have 3 minutes and 13 seconds left. I believe Commissioner Phelps has a question.
Which you probably expected I would anyway. That was interesting about your comments about delivery. That seems to be pretty much the situation that I've observed too, is that deliveries occur when deliveries have to occur. And I guess I'm kind of worried about the current wording of item 7, even with the changes that we had talked about a little bit before, because it says deliveries can only be made between hours X and Y. Do those hours work for you in terms of delivery, or do deliveries after this period of time as specified here?
They do. That would be very problematic, and I'm sorry that I wasn't clear that I brought that up. I guess my counterproposal is that since we can't control deliveries, and again, we will do our best to see what we can do, but they just show up in Alaska, you know. And what we would do would be agree not to use any of the diesel and motorized refrigeration trucks, and we would have them, if those sort of trucks arrived, we'd use electrical refrigeration.
Okay, so you'd be amenable to a change. Well, you would obviously want to have a change in the current wording of item 7 as it relates to deliveries, but you would be amenable to a specification that the use would be or by electrical motorized trucks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Refrigeration trucks, units or trucks? Vans, okay, refrigeration vans.
One other thing, too, I could offer up that would be helpful is that we can stage trucks on the far side of the parking lot on the Diamond Road side, so that when it's time for their queue to come, they just pull in, unload, and get gone. We've done that in other stores here in Anchorage, and it's worked pretty successful.
So would a condition like that would be that trucks that are to provide deliveries to this store shall be staged?
Yes, sir, we could do that.
Such that the deliveries would occur during regular hours, or would occur at only one time?
No, deliveries would occur when they occur, but if they showed up during the hours of restriction, they would only be at the loading dock for unloading and would use electric refrigeration if they were those types of trucks. And then if there was a truck that was waiting for the dock, it could be staged, and we can work with staff, on the location in the parking lot out along Diamond, where it would be staged until there was a dock available for it.
Oh, I see. What you could do then is identify a location on the plan where you could actually have this occur, and in theory then it would be further away from the residential area, so there'd be fewer impacts. Is that the idea?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Parks?
To the chair, I've got a couple of questions about the deliveries and how you would word that and make sure that we're on the same sheet of music. The hours for trash pickup would be between the working hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yes, sir, we can control that.
And snow removal would be when the store is closed after 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, I think, in your store's case there.
It was my understanding that the snow removal is kind of one of the noisy aspects, and we would do that during the day. But the actual
not transportation, I'm talking about remove snow off the lot.
Yes, that's
plowing. Okay. And you don't have any trouble with that in the evenings. And then removal during the day?
Yeah, we would be able to plow, during the evening when the store's closed.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have any issues with the maintaining storage, exterior storage on the lot? You're not going to use any of these vans or any of the Connexes for storage of any items. The trucks are going to come and go.
Well,
trailers?
That's a tough question to answer because, as I say, when they come in for these seasonal sales, it may take like 5 days before the truck is completely unloaded, and that merchandise is completely removed from that truck.
So 5 days would be your maximum for a van to sit on your lot?
That's a tough question because it would probably be better if we could eliminate it to a certain amount of trailers at any one time. Because what happens if all of a sudden the Tupperware takes 7 days and we get a complaint? It'd just be easier, I think, for everybody if we can have, maybe up to 8 trailers at any given time. But our intent is to empty them and move them on as quickly as possible.
That's all relative, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. So is it reasonable to assume that not only can you not control the time your trailers come, you can't control when they leave, and you can't control how many show up at once? And so sometimes you may be dealing with more trailers than you have dock space for.
That is correct, because when the ship arrives and Linden comes, they hit all of us at one time.
The ship seems to control everything in the state. When they do not want it sitting, so it's on and off as fast as they can get it, and everything moves around that. And I would assume wintertime schedules are a little more challenging due to storms, whatnot, than summertime scheduling for arrivals. So that being said, have you found it a problem other than the few storage containers that were mentioned previously by staff as far as storage?
You mean
has the code enforcement given you, excuse me, any I guess cause for grief that you seem to be? Are you perpetually storing stuff according to them?
Not at the store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe other stores.
Fairbanks, I've had an issue.
Okay. And to confirm that if we were to change the verbiage on the snow, instead of saying snow, instead of removing the word plowing, you use snow removal and leaving plowing open-ended as you need it, whenever you need it, based on conditions would work.
We'll make that work, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phelps?
Actually, I think that last point was the point I was trying to get at. And so snow plowing would occur at any time as necessary, and snow removal would occur during the dark hours, so to speak. Well, after the operation hours, normal hours of operation. During the normal hours of operation. Okay, got it. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Any other questions at this time? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes left for rebuttal. All right, now we will hear from the public. If you wish to testify, let me just reiterate that if you represent a group like a community council or a homeowners association, you have 5 minutes and individuals have 3 minutes. When you come forward, please state your name very clearly, and if it's more than 1 or 2 syllables, please spell it out for the secretary. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify?
Hi, Chair, Commissioners. My name's Kathy Gleason, Kathy with a C, Gleason. And I don't go to this Fred Meyer location all that often because I live in Turnagain, but when I go, I enjoy shopping there. So as your discussion was proceeding, I realized when I turn off Diamond, I'm usually coming off Minnesota and turning, it's kind of a free-for-all once you hit that large parking lot for not only Fred Meyer, but also the commercial development there. I believe there's a church, and there's Burlington Coat Factory, and and I don't know where Fred Meyer's property starts and where other property starts in that whole pavement area. But I think it would be nice to see if there's some way on that eastern end of where Fred Meyer has control of what they can do with their parking area to use landscaping to more define traffic routing. Because like I said, once you make that left-hand turn into that area, it's just kind of crazy. And it's good that those businesses are all generating a lot of traffic into that area. But I think it would be beneficial to the consumer, to the people using these areas, once they get into that parking lot, to perhaps use landscaping islands to facilitate a better traffic flow whether you're going to go to the Burlington Coat Factory area or over to the west of the Fred Meyer area. Just a thought, just since I was sitting here thinking about how that whole store works when I shop there. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Janice Berry, B-E-R-R-Y, and I live in the Stonegate condominiums, right behind Fred Meyer's. I don't really understand this big booklet. I just got to read it when I got here. But my concern was just about the diesel trucks that are unloading, you know, so close to where I live and where I garden. And I heard his solution somewhat, which is, it's a quasi-good solution, switching from diesel to electric power to store the food while it's being loaded in. But the trucks are so loud from the proximity of where I live. So I was thinking, well, I don't see anything addressed in this. So that was my question, you know. Is it being addressed or not? Because the only solution I can see is to either move the loading area to a different side of the store or increase the buffer between where we live and the store. So that's my question. Is it being addressed at all in this plan?
Does anyone have any questions? Could we ask staff if there's any further comments regarding her buffering issue?
In terms of buffering, there really isn't. There's a little bit of maybe 5 or 6 feet worth of landscaping and a fence there. The only solution I would see in terms of greater buffering is to make that fence, instead of just an ordinary dog-eared fence, into a sound barrier fence, and that would cut down a great deal on the noise of trucks going in and out of there. That's one possibility. You know, obviously you can't move the store and you can't move the residential units. The only other thing, there is an existing fence there, but to beef that fence up and add to it so it did have more soundproofing qualities to it.
Thank you for your testimony.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Please come forward.
My name is Eleanor Hung, H-U-N-G. I just have one question. When I got here, I couldn't go through all of this, so I have a very brief question about the sewage. Is Fred Meyer's sewage going to have their own sewage deposit and not run through Stonegate Condo Association? Because right now, I think it's running towards Minerva. And I see them out there just about every month pumping, and they say they get grease, a lot of grease. So it's got to come from Fred Meyer. Can anybody answer that question? If they've paid any attention to that?
Ma'am, I believe that the Fred Meyer store is on public water and sewer. So it is a public system. So it would not impact, in my opinion, anything relating to the water and sewer system for Stonegate condominiums.
So you don't think that it's running through the condo association and dumping in there? The line runs all the way from the back of where you folks were discussing the noise. It runs from there because that's where they dump all their sewage from the deli and whatever garbage. Like if they don't want to sell the fruits and the vegetables for that particular day because they look kind of dead, it all goes in there and it goes down through our place and they dump it in there. And that's where we get all the grease and everything.
Commissioner Wilson.
I don't know the answer to your question, but it's public water and sewer there, I'm quite sure. But are you speaking of a storm sewer, which is runoff from the surface?
No, not the surface. It's underground.
Okay, there's a pipe underground, but
Yeah.
is that, you say you can see grease and...
Well, I haven't seen it, but I talked to the workmen that pump it up. They come just about every month or every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
Because
probably...
I live right there and I see them.
Perhaps this is a question for the Anchorage Municipal Water and Waste. If you go in and talk to them, perhaps they can help you with the standards that they try to keep.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be helpful here. We don't have the expertise here, really.
Commissioner Cruz.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that if you go to AWWU, if there is, if they go beyond the normal maintenance, if the Anchorage Water and Wastewater has to come in and constantly pump something or fix something or something that any user in the public system is doing, they'll typically either one require that operation to change, and two, charge them quite a bit of money to come out and do that. So there's usually a couple of ways that the public water and wastewater utility can, whether it's a storm drain system issue or a water or a sewer line, if you were to anybody that's connected to it cause problems to it, then they will come back to that problem per person or entity for the required repairs and disallow what they were doing.
Yeah, because I've lived there since 1981, and I've never seen this happen before. It's been the last 5 to 8 years I noticed this.
Well, there could be an issue with this, the integrity of the system itself causing them to have to come out and do that, in which case they would then come with a project to repair it, because systems do wear out. But AWWU would be the place to go and ask. They should be able to answer your question for you.
Okay. Did they have input in G1?
I would not think so.
No, they generally don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Laura Davis. I'm with Stonegate Condominiums. I live right behind Fred Meyer's. And I wanted to say that I agree with some of the comments that have been made about the traffic flow from the Diamond side and also from Victor. And looking at those would be really appreciated. Also, consideration to that sound barrier fence. Fred Meyer's has always, I used to be on this board, and Fred Meyer's has always worked really well with us to minimize the noise at nighttime, but there's a lot of things that you can't control. So a sound barrier fence would be really appreciated there. And that's all.
Any comments, questions? Commissioner Phelps, ma'am, would you please come back? We have a question for you.
Okay. The question is on the sound barrier fence that you mentioned. Where would that be located? I mean, can you give me a sense of how long it would be, where it would be located?
The existing fence that's there behind Fred Meyer's before the residential area in the south.
Oh, so you want to replace that with a sound reduction
right now
fence?
It's just a tall wooden fence.
Okay. Thank you.
And then also, now that we're thinking of it, there's there's a space in the fence for us to be able to walk from the association to Fred Meyer's. We don't ever want to get rid of that. That's used a lot. And I know sometimes there's people that want to close that off and stuff, but we don't want it closed off.
Stay right there, please. Thank you very much. Commissioner Wilson.
Just to follow up on your comments, which paralleled mine about the access issues with Victor Road under redesign and reconstruction here. It may be too late to do a whole lot, but you can do a lot with striping sometimes without changing the actual pavement. You may want to voice your concern to the State Department of Transportation. And
About road upgrades.
and if you have a community council action on that, you can forward that too.
Yeah, because I will literally go the long way out, out Diamond, go all the way around, come back around to avoid going out Victor, because you can't turn left there. And but then coming in from Diamond, it backs up out on, even though you've got the light and the light changes, cars are still backed up.
Yeah.
Can't get traffic through. Burlington is.
And that is something that can be fixed, but it may well not be. It may not rise to the level of the technical standards for road design. I don't know, but if the community expresses views on it, sometimes the designers can do something.
Yeah, they're smart.
Commissioner Pruz, and then Ms. Ferguson.
I was just going to say that the Victor Road upgrade is scheduled to go out to bid from the Department of Transportation this Wednesday.
Oh.
So the plans are out, the design's been out, and the contractors will be bidding it Wednesday, and there will be a notice of award by next week, which would start construction in May. So you may want to go to DOT and see what they've done. That doesn't mean you can't visit with them and have some changes done after the fact, before actual construction begins, if you see something there.
Would those plans be online, do you think?
If you were a plans room holder or an AGC member, but you can go to what I call the Upside Down building at the airport. They're by Lake Hood, and they will have them there. You could just go up and ask, and they'll send you down to purchasing, and you can see the plans there.
Okay. Now can I go?
I think that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your input, Commissioner Pruz. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Phelps had a question about the location of the fence. If you look at page 21 of the packet, there is a photo of that existing fence.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Please come forward. Anyone else at all? All right. The petitioner has 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Tom Gibbons with Fred Meyer again. Hey, just a couple things. I forgot to mention on the signage for the building. On the signage, we are replacing the existing sign and relocating it, like with the drive-through pharmacy, that will be moving. We're not making any addition to the signs, just for clarification. The other thing I thought I'd just quickly touch bases was on the sound wall. We had looked at doing something back there, and if you look at the aerial, or not the aerial, but the photograph on page 21, it'll kind of give you an idea. And where I first learned of this issue was, if you look at those trees that are behind there, Chugach, or not tree, is it Chugach Electric? The electric company has an easement that goes an area that covers the landscape area, and they wanted to take out all of those trees this summer to relocate and do a power loop. And I had, got some wind of it from the neighborhood, and it obviously didn't go over very well. And so I worked, very hard, and we relocated that easement with the electric company to save those trees. if we were to do something to try to enhance that fence to a sound wall, again, those trees will have to go out, because once you start building basically a CMU brick wall, you have to have footings, and the footings will be as wide as the landscape area is in itself. And my project manager here, if he wants to address it, could talk about it, because on another store, we came across this very same issue. And if you also look at this photo, kind of shows you the height of some of the residential structures that you have there. And so obviously we couldn't build a wall that high, and then taking out those trees, I think would, make the situation a lot more disaster than it is today, to be quite honest with you. And again, any questions for me or my project manager, we'd be glad to answer them.
Commissioner Wilson.
Did I hear you say that you need 2 foot, 2 or 3 foot, 4 foot footings to get a wall that is a true sound barrier? Is that the only design available in this universe? Must be something else.
We looked at, I'm Mike Van Kirk, I'm the project manager, but we looked at Fairbanks, and it was 6 to 12 feet wide by about 6 feet down, just because of the soil is so sandy versus what you have anywhere else as bedrock or anything else. I don't know here.
How high are you going?
12 feet.
I'm not an engineer, but it doesn't sound reasonable to me.
We didn't think so either.
Sound like there must be an alternative that has been developed by the materials we have to stop sound without having to, go out that wide.
We ended up doing a wooden version, and it was 20 feet down, I think is what it was, with 6 feet of concrete down below that to go that high, just because of the wind factor, tipping over and everything else that you have to account for. I'm not a structural engineer, but that's what they came back to me with the design so we couldn't actually do the concrete CMU wall.
I've got a 12-foot fence, wooden fence. I just put a pole with 2 feet of cement under it, and it's holding fine in a windy area. But maybe commercial standards are different. But
may we have your name for the record, please?
Mike Van Kirk.
How do you spell your last name?
V as in Victor, A-N-K-I-R-K.
Thank you. More questions? I think we have Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is an alternative to doing a concrete masonry wall that we've already tried, and it does work here in Anchorage. You all may have seen it. It's along Northern Lights in Benson, where the Rogers Park neighborhood is. Yeah. That is simply fencing on one side, fencing on the inside, on the outside, and in between they put solid plywood. And as long as it's, down close to the ground, so there's no, noise travels on air current. So as long as it's close to the ground at the bottom, so you're getting no air movement at the bottom, and they put solid plywood in the middle, and then the facing boards on either side, that has worked very well.
Thank you for that additional information. Commissioner Phelps.
Well, I'm still kind of struggling with this item number 7, and I've developed wording, and I want to read the wording to you to see if you are, if this properly captures what I think we're both talking about. The hours of trash pickup and snow removal shall be restricted to the hours of 7 a.m. through 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. through 10 p.m. on weekends and holidays. Deliveries can occur, snow plowing may occur at any time as necessary. Deliveries can occur also as necessary up to 8 vehicles per hour, period. Storage, refrigerated storage vehicles shall use electrical power when parked for actual delivery.
Can we limit that to the loading docks? Because if we have them out on the staging area in front of the store, there will not be.
That was the intention.
Power.
Otherwise?
I think we'll have to make that work.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners? You have 54 seconds left.
I'm done, thank you.
All right.
Well,
All right. Thank you very much.
can I ask him a question?
Yes.
Yeah. We just heard staff testify that, in fact, perhaps a sound barrier fence is practicable. What's your sense, given that situation, given what she has just said?
I think it's not going to work in our case there, because if you look at the height of the condominium, there's still going to be those units, and sound kind of goes up and over. I think by mitigating it the way we're proposing to do it is going to be sufficient. I think also our store director and our people here are really good at working with the community and the local, housing and councils, and I can make an assertive effort that they do their best to control the truck traffics. But I think we're still going to have the same problem with any kind of wall or structure there, because we're not going to be able to build it as high as those units are directly behind, and that's where the problem is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments? Thank you very much. Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the commission? Commissioner Phelps. Motion to approve?
Yes. I move in the case of a public hearing site plan review for an expansion and renovation of the Fred Meyer's grocery store, a large retail establishment at the location specified in page G1, to approve that site plan subject to the conditions of approval that are listed in the staff memorandum on pages 14 and 15 of the staff packet, with changes to the following items. Where it says, item number 6, commercial trailers and shipping containers shall not be maintained on the premises for storage purposes, I would delete that, and I would then use the language that's on page 12 under item, looks like P1, where it states, let's get this right. Is it one? Page 8?
Page 8.
Got the wrong one.
The last
Okay.
sentence.
Commercial trailers, shipping containers, and similar equipment used for transporting merchandise shall remain on the premises only as long as required for loading and unloading operations, and shall not be maintained on the premises for storage purposes. I would also replace item number 7 with the following language. The hours of trash pickup and snow removal shall be restricted to the hours of 7 a.m. through 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. through 10 p.m. on weekends and holidays, period. The hours of snow plowing may occur at any time, as necessary, period. Deliveries can also occur as necessary up to 8 delivery vehicles per hour, period. Refrigerated, and I may have help on this, but trucks with refrigeration units. There shall be 4 vehicles with refrigeration units. They shall use electrical power at the time of delivery at the loading dock. And I'll ask for some help in the last wording. But that is the intention that I have on item number 7. And the other items remain as they are right now.
This motion was seconded by Mr. Parks. Are you in agreement with those items? Okay.
Yes.
Could we hear the last one more time, just for clarity's purposes?
Okay. I still may have some help in that last sentence there.
Yeah. So
okay. The hours of trash pickup and snow
Removal.
shall be restricted the hours of 7 a.m. through 10 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. through 10 p.m. on weekends and holidays. Snow plowing may occur at any time, as necessary, period. Deliveries can occur also as necessary, up to 8 delivery vehicles per hour, period. Trucks with refrigeration units shall use electrical power when parked for delivery and located at the loading bays.
Commissioner Pruz?
I would like to add that up to 8 per hour, 8 trucks per hour at the loading dock. They may, if a ship comes in, they may not be able to control how many they get that hour. So at the dock, which is by the neighborhood, would make sense where they could park someplace else.
And so rather than amend the amendment, what I want to do is change the wording that I have developed to be consistent with the wording as explained just a moment ago.
Yes. Yes. And that's fine. And no objection, Mr. Parks? All right. Okay. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, this case is approved with the following, with those conditions. What?
What discussion?
Oh, we have to have findings?
Yes.
Commissioner Phelps.
In this particular case, I find that this particular project is essentially an interior remodel and expansion, and not so much related to the expansion of the facility in an external space, except for one small area. There are areas of improvement in terms of walkways, in terms of the location of landscaping facilities that provide guidance in terms of traffic movement, and other related improvements that will enhance the use of the site by the public and will enhance the operation of the facility by the operator itself. The site plan meets the requirements for site plans for large retail establishment, is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, and is otherwise consistent with the municipal code. For these reasons, I would move the approval of this particular project.
All right. Any other findings of fact? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Phelps. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back. Planning and Zoning Commission is reconvened. We're now ready for case number 2011-115. The petitioner is the Municipality of Anchorage. The request is for plans and plan amendments, official streets and highways plan. May we hear from the petitioner? Oh.
Whose recommendations are these?
I think they're changes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, my name is Erica McConnell. I'm a senior planner with the Transportation Planning section of the Planning Division in the municipality. And what we are bringing before you is a revision to the Official Streets and Highways Plan, which we call the OS&HP. The OS&HP is an element of the comprehensive plan. And what it does is it sets the functional classification of the streets within the municipality. There are six functional classifications of streets. You have local streets, collectors, arterials, expressways, and freeways. I think that was just 5. The OS&HP, if it's not shown on the map, it's a local street. So the OS&HP doesn't really deal with local streets, but it deals with everything that's considered a higher classification than local streets. So again, collectors, arterials, expressways, and freeways. In an ideal world, a revision to the OS&HP follows close on the heels of a revision to the Long-Range Transportation Plan. The Long-Range Transportation Plan
often proposes projects, new connections, roadway expansions, things like that, which then require an amendment to the OSNHP to talk about what is the classification of that street, or adding it in as a new street where a street didn't exist before. This particular update is several years late for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into, but we do have a long-range transportation plan, which we're now calling the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, that will be coming before you in the next couple of months. And I'd like to assure you that this OSNHP is tailored very close to that MTP. And if there are changes that are needed based on the MTP when it's adopted early next year, we'll be able to do minor amendments to the OSNHP to make them consistent with each other. So what the OSNHP does, as I said, is it sets the functional classification. It describes the general function and characteristics of these higher classification streets. And kind of most importantly, it sets the minimum right-of-way width for these streets. So that is important for two reasons. One, when a street is either being platted for the first time and thus dedicated to the municipality, or if there's a platting action around that street, the municipality will seek to get the right-of-way width that is called for in the OSNHP if the street width, if it's an existing street and the street width isn't wide enough today. And the other thing that it affects is the development setbacks of the properties along these streets. If you do have a street right-of-way that is not as wide as the OSNHP calls for, so for instance, say you have a street that has a 50-foot right-of-way, but the OSNHP calls for 60 feet, the building setback on the adjacent properties will start 5 feet in. So it starts from the projected right-of-way, which would have been 30 feet on each side of the center line for a 60-foot OSNHP street as opposed to 25 feet. I'm sorry if I've now confused you. Let me know and I'll try to explain that again. Anyway, so those are two of the major important things about what the OSNHP does. What I've provided in your packet is the brief staff report, a list of the public comments that were received before the report was due and how we responded to them. And then attachment B is a list of the changes in classification or changes to the maps or tables that are between the earlier OSNHP, our current one, and this proposed draft. So the changes that are in attachment B are already shown in the public hearing draft. What I just handed out to you are amendments that are proposed by staff for your consideration based on, mostly on public comments and the one or two errors that I found as I was putting the information together for you. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Phelps.
Let's go back to that description about the two purposes, the OSNHP and the one you said we may have to have additional clarification on. Could you try that again?
Sure. Title 21 has a section called projected setbacks from, well, let me find the exact reference. Setbacks from projected rights-of-way. So the municipality has standards for right-of-way width. For a local street, it's either 50 or 60 feet, depending on the situation, but in urban areas, it's 60 feet. Collectors vary between 60 and 80 feet. Arterials vary between 80 and 100. I think it's at just 100 feet. Freeways are 150 feet. In the past, kind of before we had an official streets and highways plan, lots of streets were dedicated with, let's just say, 50 feet of right-of-way. Perhaps it was a local street at the time. Sometime later, it was reclassified to be a collector street, but additional right-of-way was not taken or given. So the street is still 50 feet wide, but because it's designated as, for example, a 1C collector, which is the narrowest type of neighborhood collector, the OSNHP calls for 60 feet of right-of-way. So this setbacks from projected rights-of-way section says that the building setback on adjacent lots shall start from a distance from the center of the street that is half of the required right-of-way. So if the required right-of-way is 60 feet, half of the required right-of-way is 30 feet. So it's 30 feet on either side of the center line. But if the street only has 50 feet of right-of-way, the building setback is going to start 5 feet onto the person's property. Because in the future, they may need to expand the road and they may need to take that right-of-way, and that will ensure that in the future, if they do need to do that, the lot will continue to be a conforming lot. The person will have conforming setbacks. Did that make more sense?
So it does. So when this occurs is when there is a plat or when there's a building permit that would be required for either a plat or a structure?
Not with a building permit.
It's with the plat.
Usually. It happens with a plat. The other time it can happen is if the government, either the state or the muni, is coming in and doing a road project and they need to take additional right-of-way, and then they will purchase it.
So it's a setback then? It's a building setback or principal structure?
No.
That's what I was trying to get at, is the right-of-way widths have a major effect on adjacent properties because of this particular reason, this particular section. And so I was kind of highlighting that that's an important kind of component of setting the right-of-way widths.
Yeah, I understand, but again, what I'm trying to get to is, whether as a result, if you're saying it's a plat, I'm not sure I would agree, but let's assume that, that they would, in that instance of the plat, well, I guess I am confused, because in the platting action, they would simply take the amount of area they need to take. That would be what we would do as the platting board. The instance where it would come up and actually be utilized, I think, would be in the situation where you did have a building permit that came in, and because there was no platting, as there no other authorization, you would want that structure to be placed back a certain distance in anticipation of a projected road in the future.
I think I see. I apologize if I misunderstood. The projected setback section certainly applies when there is a building permit, but at the time of the building permit, the property owner is not expected to dedicate the...
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's expected to set back the principal structure, but there's no taking of property in the same way you take it in a right-of-way action or in an acquisition action.
Correct.
So the actual property that may be required is bought at a future time, essentially, but the structure is set back sufficiently so that it's conforming.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Erica, I have one question, which doesn't interfere at all with the front yard setback or the rear yard setback.
Could you ask that in a different way?
Well, when you go to get your building permit, you have to conform to the front yard setback requirements, side yard, rear yard, and all that sort of thing. So my question is that additional setback requirement does not impact or negate the requirement for the front yard setback?
No. In my hypothetical example, that property would end up with a 25, assuming, say it was R1, a 25-foot front setback, and the use of that property, of that extra 5 feet, instead of a 20-foot.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Are there any other questions from Commissioner Wilson?
My question is about, on page 17, Northern Lights Boulevard. There's a long explanation of confusion on the part of several parties, or let's see, lack of agreement on what a section of Northern Lights Boulevard from Arrow to Wisconsin really is. I think I'm suffering because I don't understand what these terms mean, minor arterial 2 or IC. So could you explain that paragraph to me and why staff is recommending what it's recommending?
Sure, and I think you're going to hear more about this in public testimony as well. The Turnagain neighborhood is concerned with truck traffic on West Northern Lights. And this has come up in the past, and it came up a lot when West Northern Lights was rebuilt from Nathaniel to Wisconsin in the mid-2000s. And there was, so commercial vehicles, which includes, tractor trailers, are not allowed on residential collectors, on neighborhood collectors, unless they're making a delivery. So the Turnagain Community Council was interested in having parts of West Northern Lights reclassified from a minor arterial to a neighborhood collector in order to prevent its use by these large trucks coming in and out of the airport. So if you look at the 2005 Official Streets and Highways Plan, and you can actually look at the map there, a minor arterial is indicated by a thin solid line, and a collector is indicated by a dotted line. The one piece of West Northern Lights from Arrow to Wisconsin had a thin solid line which indicates a minor arterial, and again I'm talking about the 2005 map, but it had a label of 1C, which is a collector label. So there's this confusion. Was it actually changed to a collector, or was it not changed? And so what I was trying to express in that paragraph is that I could find no record of it being changed, and so my conclusion was that the 1C label was an error. Does that make sense?
What's 1C mean?
1C is a type, there are 4 categories of collector. There's a 1, a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C, and they vary either by right-of-way width or by kind of function. And you can see those if you look on the main Anchorage Bowl map.
Yeah.
I find the easiest place to kind of look at the various classifications is in the legend. So if you look under the collectors in the legend, you'll see that there's a 1, which has, 2 lanes, 80 feet of right-of-way, and 2,000 to 10,000 average daily traffic. And then just under that is a 1A, which is the industrial commercial collector, then the 1B and the 1C, which are types of neighborhood collectors.
Okay, now I understand what the categories are. Now, what I don't understand is the discussion of how staff came up with the proposed classification of that section as a 2 minor arterial. Okay, 2 minor arterial would be 2 to 4 lanes and 80-foot right-of-way width, 10 to 20,000 average daily traffic. Right now, it is classified as
a minor arterial. West Northern Lights has been classified as a minor arterial since the late 60s or early 70s.
Okay.
And if you look in the amendment list that I passed out, based on discussions, the Turnagain Community Council was the only council that asked me to come speak to them about this issue, and I did that, and we discussed the issue of trucks on West Northern Lights and the fact that there are signs that limit weight there, and the fact that the airport has, to my understanding, directed their the various businesses that have freight on the airport that the main entrance and exit to the airport is on it should be International Airport Road. And the fact that, you know, certain portions of West Northern Lights, particularly Arrow to Wisconsin, have, you know, relatively high traffic counts and function as funneling traffic from both local streets and collectors onto a major arterial, that it was, anyway, so it was our position that it should remain a minor arterial, but after discussing the issue with the Turnagain Community Council, we are proposing that from Postmark Drive to Arrow should be changed from a minor arterial to a neighborhood collector. This is a portion of West Northern Lights that has lesser traffic volumes and would still have the effect of limiting the truck traffic on West Northern Lights to deliveries only.
And so did the planning staff take into account the long-range plans for industrial development at our airport?
My understanding is that the industrial traffic that's generated at the airport is told to go in and out by International Airport Road.
When you say you understand, did you get something in writing from the airport?
I've talked to them. I don't think they gave me anything in writing.
Right. That was my understanding also. So we're going on hearsay, and we're making a decision to shrink the width and the type, the intensity of truck traffic based on a wish that, or an understanding that the airport has advised or encouraged or invited its tenants to route away from West Northern Lights.
Additionally, there have been signs posted along West Northern Lights since 1977 that restrict traffic to less than 11,000 pounds of gross vehicular weight. And most trucks are over that. So the intention of the municipality since 1977 has been that trucks over 11,000 pounds do not use West Northern Lights.
I'm just thinking, long range, this may not be a wise decision, even though it may be very important to the local community to restrict that kind of traffic. We don't have very much industrial land in this bowl, as you're well aware. We only have one major airport in the bowl, and it's important economically. So the question is, if development occurs on the other side, on the west side of the north-south runway, the truck traffic from that source would have to travel around the runway and up to Northern Lights, West Northern Lights, and then travel all the way back down the other side of the north-south runway into the middle of the traffic of the terminal area, and then out International Airport Road. That's the practical effect of what you're recommending. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, but I would also say that current signage would indicate that same result.
Is current signage based on, well, I don't know what it's based on, but could it be based on the quality of the subsurface, be able to handle more than 11,000 pounds?
I can't answer that. It's possible, but
Yeah.
you would
Generally,
think that if
that's
they've
what-
improved the subsurface, they would take down the signs.
Right. But did they improve the subsurface there?
I can't answer that.
Okay. I don't know either. So we have several questions. I think it's a worthy thing for the neighborhood to propose, and I've I certainly applaud their efforts, but it is a confusing situation in light of the fact that it flies in the face of potential long-range industrial uses of the airport in a particular area of the airport, the northern part. FedEx and UPS, big, box trucks, are deliverers, so they're exempted from that. They're not tractor trailers, although you'll see FedEx and UPS trucks, tractor trailer trucks, elsewhere in the nation. And you might even see them here in the future. So, I'm concerned about the recommendation. It sounds like a couple of assumptions are being made here about the basis on which it's made objectively. So, I don't know what I want to do with this, but I'd like to have a discussion among the Planning Commission members at some point, if I may, Madam Chair.
Why don't we go ahead and open the public hearing, and then we can, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Pruz, I apologize.
I'd just like to make a statement on that. At 11,000 pounds, today the vehicles, I know you can, if my memory serves me right, the pickups that you buy will have a gross vehicle weight quite a bit over that. And yes, 15, 16, 17,000 pounds, whereas back in the 70s they weren't there. So I'm just wondering what that 11,000 pounds really means in practicality, with the fact that today's vehicles are designed, the public, non-commercial, are heavier than that now. So I just bring that up.
Are there any other questions at this time or comments before we open the public hearing? All right. This is the time when we'll take testimony from the public. So is there anyone here who wishes to testify on case 2011-115? Please come forward at this time.
Good evening. My name is Judy Michael. My husband and I own property out in the South Anchorage, part of South Anchorage, that we have some questions about some of the changes that are being proposed in this OSHP. So I'm asking for clarification more than anything else. First of all, on page, and I'm using your attachment G1 that you have, on page 14, I believe it is, of that. Well, just a minute here. Get my pages right. On page 8, where you talk about, it's the third box down in the matrix. You're talking in the response section about adding 155th and 156th, or removing 156th and 155th. In addition, I'm sorry, I'm being confusing here. On page 14, you are talking about adding 155th and 156th to the OSHP. You're putting it in there from the Hillside District Plan. Then, on page 8, you're talking about taking it out. And so that's a little bit inconsistent. In the comments on page 8, you say that after further discussions with transportation planning staff and the MTP staff, it is recommended that the following collectors be removed from the OS&HP: 156th Avenue, 155th Avenue, except for the small portion that connects Hillside Drive with the unnamed collector that heads south to Potter Heights area, Carl Street and Payne Street. So the clarification is, are you talking about adding it or removing it? And if you are removing it, the portion from Hillside Drive to the unnamed collector, what is that going to be? Is that going to be a Class 1B collector, and then from the unnamed collector farther to the west, what classification will that have? I think that's inconsistent somewhere there, that it needs some clarification as to what you're doing with 155th and 156th. Then on page 15, under other proposed changes, you have a portion of, it says Mountain Air Drive, and it says Mountain Air Drive will go from Rabbit Creek Road to 164th as a 1B collector. Well, 164th does not exist east of Luna. All right, I'm sorry.
Are there questions from this testimony? Commissioner Wilson.
Could I ask you about what you were just saying? I didn't really understand.
Okay. On the maps, are you talking about the 155th, 156th piece? There are two streets in South Anchorage. If you look on your map with the official streets and highways plans, 155th runs east-west from Hillside Drive on the east and runs west. It has a jag or a fork where it becomes 156th, continuing west. In this document, in your attachments on page 8, the response here says, thank you, that they are going to remove the following collectors and specify 156th and 155th. And they specify that they're going to remove them, except for a small portion that connects Hillside Drive with the unnamed collector that heads south to Potter Heights. So they have a piece of it that they want to leave in and a piece of it that they want to remove. I am assuming that what they are doing is changing, thank you, is changing
We're not going to be able to hear you. You're going to have to bring it closer, or you can have
Sure.
to speak from the microphone.
They can show you where it is. She's got sticky marks down there. You can see 155th running. Go ahead.
To orient you just briefly. Rabbit Creek Road is this dark line right here. This dotted line is Golden Drive. One that is being questioned, which we're talking about, is 155th. Curve or couple of little jagging that this is run at 156. And it's shown going all the way to the fence. Coming from Hillside Drive to Golden View Drive.
Going east-west.
This would be what is Hillside Drive is not shown on here. Hillside Drive is the way. And it shows 155th this way. Small curve becoming 156 to Golden. The property tank is not built at this point. It is dedicated from 156 down to about barely on 156. I can show you on the flat.
I'm sorry, we're not hearing you very clearly because you're not speaking into the microphone, and we also need to know your name. So are you giving individual testimony at this particular point in time?
No.
Okay.
I have a copy of a plat if it's easier for you to see it.
My name is David Michael.
Okay.
This is my wife. I have a long history in the area, and I pretty much know the roads, and there are some things that appear to be inconsistent and some questions that we have. I'm not sure that they're right. I'm not sure that they're wrong, but they seem to be inconsistent. And we're not going to be able to get it done in 3 minutes.
Well, just hang on here for a minute, because I think there are probably commissioners that will continue to perhaps ask you questions so that we can get all the information
We'll do our best.
we need. Are there any questions, any more questions? Erica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was hoping I could help clear up a little of the confusion.
Okay.
Ms. Michael, thank you. There is some contradiction, and how it came about is this way. When looking at how the roads in the hillside area, how the streets in the hillside area should be classified, we went to the Hillside District Plan, which is one of our most recently adopted area neighborhood district plans.
Right.
It gives very little guidance about which streets should be what. So what we did in attempts to wrap this project up quickly is we took the transportation map in that plan shows primary routes and secondary routes. We took all the primary routes and we said, these are collectors. And we put that out there for public comment. And what we heard back, and so that's what you see on pages 14 and 15. All of the primary routes in the Hillside District Plan put out there as collectors. What we received back in comment was that there were certain ones that were not considered by the neighborhood and the community council to feel to be necessary as collectors. So then we took them off again on in the comment response on page 8 and in the amendment list. So we are proposing removing from collector status, meaning we're not taking away the roads.
No, I understand.
That just means they just remain local streets. Taking away 156th, 155th, Jamie Avenue, Carl Street, and Payne Road, with the exception of that little portion of 155th that connects Hillside Drive and the collector that goes farther south.
No.
So if you're looking at your map and you're coming off of Rabbit Creek Road going south on Mountain Air Drive, the collector system would include Mountain Air, Hillside, that little bit of 155th heading back to the west, and then going south in that kind of curvy street all the way down to Portugal. So that is what is currently...
So you're proposing the little piece from Hillside to the unnamed collector?
Correct.
Would be a 1B collector?
Correct.
And then from that point west, it would be?
A local street.
A local street. Okay. Okay. Since she brought it up, may I ask her about the Mountain Air Drive from Rabbit Creek to 164th? I don't know if that's appropriate. If not, I can bring it up in writing somewhere else.
I think your testimony, unless someone else, you've used up your time unless someone else has a question and wants to ask you about that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify at this time? Would you please come forward?
I guess you can testify.
My name is David Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, and I have a 60-plus year history in that specific area that my wife just addressed. And I've appeared before this commission before regarding some of these issues. question that I have, well, first of all, let me say this, is that we are not opposed to roads. We are not opposed to development of property. That being said, questions. There is a road which is shown on this map that shows, it is called Unnamed Road, but I have seen it advertised on the internet as Mountain Air Drive. This would be Mountain Air Drive that is in the Shangri-La subdivision. It is called Unnamed Road or Shangri-La Drive. According to the platting board, which met in July of this year, of 11, July 6th of 11, there was an extension approved until 2013. The maps that are shown are showing the road that continues south through Shangri-La all the way over to, is it Portugal or Romania? All the way to the south, is shown as a 1B collector. However, the roads that are being shown on the proposed and platted maps through the Shangri-La are showing them as 24 feet wide. It's my understanding that a 1B collector is 70 feet wide by definition. And so you're going to have ultimately, maybe someday, Mountain Air Drive, which begins at Rabbit Creek Road. You're going to continue Rabbit Creek Road. I won't go into that controversy right now, but there will be a Mountain Air Drive that will be going to the south. And that Mountain Air Drive will be a 1B collector, which the design report calls for bike trails and walking paths on each side, et cetera, and that is going to cross the Little Rabbit Creek at some point, and eventually is slated to tie into Shangri-La at their northern border. At that point, it appears on the platting maps and the platting board of July 6, 11, that road at that point will become 24 feet wide with a 50-foot, at this point, a 50-foot turnaround. Okay, so you've got a 1B collector that is 80 feet wide, and it's going to go into a 24-foot wide 1B collector, but it won't be a 1B collector, and that's to go all the way to the southern border, the southern terminus of that road.
Thank you.
Why?
Thank you for your testimony.
I hope I'm being as clear as mud here. I'm trying to be clear.
Are there questions? All right. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Your indulgence for one. There are other questions that I have that seem to be possible inconsistencies in the OS and HP. Maybe. And I would like further
Does
information
anyone
about
have
that.
any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for all your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on case 2011-115?
Chair and members of the Commission, my name is Kathy Gleason, Kathy with a C, G-L-E-A-S-O-N. I'm president of Turnagain Community Council, and just to address Commissioner Prue's point that manufacturers seem to make big pickup trucks now that may go over 11,000 pounds in weight, private vehicles, and his concern, Municipal Code 9.46.410 refers to the weight limit of collectors of 11,000 pounds or less to commercial vehicles, so you really don't need to be concerned about that. If you got in your packet Turnigan's original letter and resolution that we submitted October 28th, hopefully you've all read that. Our letter gives reasons why we think that from Wisconsin on to Postmark Drive should be changed to collector status from minor arterial. If you'll see one of the handouts, it's a photo of a sign that, just to clarify, this sign currently no longer exists on the north side of West Northern Lights at West Northern Lights and Lois Drive. But the traffic department emailed me this photo today. This sign does exist on the south side of West Northern Lights and Lois Drive, and he said there should have been a sign on the north side as well. He wasn't sure what happened to that, but this is just what the sign looks like that currently is posted on the south side of the road near Lois Drive. That's significant because in our resolution, when the information that we were given by the planning department is that regardless of the classification of West Northern Lights, there is a weight limit restriction because of the sign posted there. I was told today, however, when I talked to Leland Coop in traffic, that his opinion is that sign is not enforceable. It was an old sign, and he wasn't sure why it was still up, and that they don't view West Northern Lights as having a weight limit. That was quite a surprise to us because Turnigan Community Council's position with regard to changing that classification was we were assured that we have a weight restriction now on Northern Lights, and that's because of signage, and that there are no plans to remove that signage anytime in the near future. But based on the information I was told this afternoon, but our argument is we don't really want that weight restriction based on whether a sign exists or not that could be yanked for any reason at any time by the traffic department. So we would like to be more assured that there is a weight limit restriction on West Northern Lights between Lois Drive and Postmark Drive, and that we're asking for a reclassification from Wisconsin to Postmark in the official streets and highways plan as a collector. Based on my conversation with the traffic department this afternoon, however, being told that that signage is not enforceable, and they don't consider that West Northern Lights has a weight limit, and we talked about the UPS and FedEx package vans. They are over 11,000 pounds, and they use West Northern Lights regularly coming out of North Air Park at the airport. They have ever since those developments were put in the early 1990s, and Turnigan Community Council has expressed concern about airport-generated truck traffic on West Northern Lights since the 1990s, since cargo development has really expanded at the airport. One of the reasons why we feel like there should be collector status through Turnigan, it's completely residential. And I think Commissioner Wilson's expression of concern reinforces exactly why you should change the status of Northern Lights from Wisconsin to Postmark to a collector status because of potential long-term heavy industrial development at the north and west parts of the airport in the future. It is not appropriate to have large, heavy industrial trucks coming down through a well-established neighborhood that has been there for many years. West Northern Lights goes past Turnigan Elementary School. There is a highly used multi-use path on the north side of that road, the entire length. We don't feel that the average daily traffic count between Arrow and Wisconsin, less than 1,200. It's less than 2,000 above what the standard is for a collector limit, as opposed to 10,000 to 20,000 for a minor arterial.
If you would please finish up.
I'll try and wrap up. A lot has been brought up that I'd like to address.
You will need to wait and see if Commissioner asks you questions.
Okay, thank you.
Just 1 minute, though. Commissioner Pruz.
Okay, couple things. First, this no trucks over 11,000 pound picture. I don't see the word commercial on it. If they did enforce this would mean that not one RV could drive on your road. Is that an intent? The smallest Class C RV weighs more than 11,000 pounds.
Well, I know what the intent is for that signage, and the intent versus what it says is one of the issues why Mr. Coop told me this afternoon that they don't consider that sign enforceable. It's because it doesn't use the word through. That sign is intended to refer to put a weight limit on through heavy traffic, through Turnagain, not Turnagain destination traffic. But unfortunately, that sign doesn't have the word through on it. And so that was one of the explanations given to me why that sign is not considered enforceable, is because it's an absolute. Based on what the sign looks like, it's an absolute, and the intent is not for it to be absolute. The collector in the code, a collector refers to through traffic in terms of weight limit and gives an exception to destination traffic within a neighborhood, whether it's but it does specifically refer to commercial. So the intent for Turnagain Community Council and the intent of, I believe, when that sign was posted, was for through commercial trucks, 11,000 pounds or over, not an RV, not a heavy pickup that somebody may have bought at Cal Worthington and they live on Turnagain Parkway and wants to be able to drive to and from their home. The intent is clear from Turnagain Community Council's perspective. However, there is an issue now with regard to traffic's position that because it doesn't say through traffic on there, on the sign, that it's not enforceable. So if the official streets and highways plan changed a section of Northern Lights from minor arterial to collector, that would provide the neighborhood the intent of no large, heavy, commercial, industrial trucks going through a residential area.
Okay, so to clarify it, is it the Community Council's intent to reduce traffic count on West Northern Lights?
The intent of Turnagain Community Council is to limit the impacts of airport-generated truck traffic, large, heavier than 11,000-pound truck traffic, to use Turnagain as their through to get to other parts of the city.
So
that's Turnagain Community Council's intent.
If someone lived in Spenard, or let's say, central Northern Lights area with an RV, and they wanted to go to Earthquake Park, travel through Turnagain, through this neighborhood, would the Community Council want them to drive all the way down through the International Airport, come through Postmark Drive?
Perhaps I need to reiterate my previous answer. Turnagain Community Council's intent is to limit airport-generated commercial heavy truck traffic heavier than 11,000 pounds cutting through Turnagain. That's our council's intent. If somebody in Spenard wants to go watch the sunset at Point Warrenzoff Overlook and has a heavy truck and it happens to weigh 11,100 pounds, that is not our intent to limit access through Northern Lights to that area. There is a distinct difference, and I'm trying to articulate as best I can what the difference is. Commercial truck traffic generated by the airport, future as well as existing development.
I do not know if, and I'm not schooled up on this, if you can actually discriminate based on what type of business you're in, commercial versus private.
I'm not in the position to discriminate. It's city code. I can read you 9.46, 4.1, trucks prohibited on certain streets, use of truck routes. A, no local or residential collector street, which is why we're asking for the classification change, as designated on the official streets and highways plan of the municipality, may be used by any commercial vehicle with a gross weight of 11,000 pounds or greater, except where required to make deliveries or pickups or to provide business service at a specific location for which the vehicle is required as an essential part of the service, and then only by the most direct route requiring the least amount of travel upon such local and residential collector streets.
Thank you.
I don't want to be accused of discrimination. I'm going by the code.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify in this matter? Seeing and hearing no one? What is the wish of the commission? In the matter of 2011-115, the official streets and highways plan. Looking for a motion? Are there additional questions of staff? Erica?
Madam Chair, would it help if I walked through the proposed amendments?
Yes, that would be helpful. Thank you.
The first amendment was requested, so I'm looking at what I just handed to you tonight, starting on page 1. The first amendment was requested by the Traffic Department. They are in the process of rewriting Title IX, and Title IX is where you see the restriction on commercial truck traffic on neighborhood collectors. I'm not sure what the final language will look like in Title IX, so I think they requested this this amendment to kind of be a little bit more general. But they definitely do have a definition of what is pretty sure they have a definition of what is a commercial vehicle. So just regarding Commissioner Prue's earlier question, I don't think an RV is considered a commercial vehicle. And personal use vehicles, no matter the weight, are not considered commercial vehicles. So there's some distinction, and I don't have the definition at my fingertips, but they did request that amendment. The second amendment, if you look on page 7, in a table there, it says that the average annual daily traffic for minor arterials is 0 to 20,000, and I think actually that must be a typo, because in another table it's 10,000 to 20,000, and in the text where they describe minor arterials, they talk about 10,000 to 20,000, so that's kind of fixing an error. The third amendment is just adding the word typically. It's consistent with other wording in the plan, and it's also noting that the traffic counts are not, they're not absolute limits on what a street can be classified. There's actually a lot of leeway, and the way I like to think about it is that the functional classification is really more of an art than a science. The fourth amendment on page 18, the Rabbit Creek Community Council requested an amendment noting that in low-density residential areas, they would want to have pedestrian facilities on both sides of collectors if there was a school or a major park, an attraction along that collector. So that amendment addresses that issue. On page 28, this is in one of the study areas, the descriptions of the study areas that are out in the Chugiak-Eagle River area. There are study areas requested for certain kind of general areas where there isn't development yet, and so we don't really know it's not really the city's place to go in and say, well, here's how the, basic transportation system is going to be in this, 700, for instance, the 700 acres between the old and new Glen. So, because there's not really enough information right now to determine where the collectors and arterials should be, there's study areas that say at the time when development is coming to these areas, that's the time when we should set up what the transportation system is going to be. So this particular study area is looking at the area around Eagle River High School and Yosemite Drive. And the developer of Eagle Point subdivision came to us and mentioned that his subdivision has been platted for some time, although it's not completely developed, and he didn't feel that it was fair that he be prevented from finishing his subdivision until a study area was done, and the point of the study area was that as the Mental Health Trust land and the Eklutna land that's south of Eagle Point subdivision and Eagle River High School, as those parcels are developed, that's when the issue of secondary access into that area would need to be addressed. So we took out language that implied that development of Eagle Point subdivision would have to come to a halt until that study area was completed, because that was never our intention. The next one on all maps, you might have noticed comments from the municipal addressing official just noting places where we had gotten the spelling of a street wrong, or we called it a drive when it's an avenue, that sort of thing. So we're going to fix all that. The next to last amendment on this page, the Kinnick Bridge access road being part of the National Highway System, it is a freeway classification, and that is actually phase 2 of the Kinnick Bridge access road, when it will be brought in to meet up with the Gamble-Ingra corridor, and it kind of meets up with the Seward Highway right where the Seward and Glen are intended to come together with the highway-to-highway project. So, but we missed a little spot. We had it kind of coming into an extension of Gamble and Ingra, which were minor arterials at that point, and that was really an error. So we were just connecting the highways all with highway classification streets. The last one on page 1 was just a missed project. Project 802 in the long-range transportation plan is 84th Avenue connecting Hartzell Road to Lake Otis Parkway. This is down in the Abbott area, and that project's been in the long-range transportation plan and just kind of was accidentally missed here in the OSNHP. Turning the page, the top one was the removal of, or the downgrading from collector to local street of the Hillside District Plan streets that we discussed when Mr. and Mrs. Michael testified. The next one is reclassifying Clark's Road from a 1C collector to a 1B collector. There was comments from the Rabbit Creek Community Council about how once a trailhead is developed at the end of Brewster's Drive for Chugach State Park, that road will get a significant amount of traffic and should have adequate right-of-way to accommodate that. And since most of that road, about 3/4 of it, has 100 feet of right-of-way already, it made more sense to classify it as a 1B collector, which was generally where I was trying to go with the hillside collectors anyway, because a lot of them, perhaps all of them, will be rural collectors, and in the design criteria manual, the minimum right-of-way for a rural collector is 72 feet. So we should at least be getting close to the amount of right-of-way that would be needed for that sort of design. Third one down, in the GIS, I moved Tom Wardley Drive, which isn't a collector anymore, off into the water, and I forgot to delete it, so sorry about that. The next one is the issue of West Northern Lights that I think has been discussed. In maps 3 and 4, this proposes, and those are the two maps in Chugach Eagle River, so the kind of downtown Eagle River map and then the Birchwood Chugach Eklutna map. Proposing to remove the number of lanes column and the average daily traffic column. This just led to some confusion confusion because there are no minor arterials designated in Chugiak Eagle River. I don't know why that is. That is the way it is now. But once you see that average daily traffic column, you'll notice there's a gap between 10,000 average daily trips and 20,000 average daily trips. Now, because, like I said, applying these functional classifications is more of an art than a science, and it's not that, if there's 10,001 trips, you immediately bump it up into the next classification. It's not really that big a deal because I'm sure some collectors have more than 10,000 trips and some arterials will have less than 20,000 trips. But it just looked funny in the legend that you had that gap of, there's no street that can accommodate 10 to 20,000 trips. So I just proposed to take them off of the legend, which is how the current OSNHP is. Those aren't in the legend for that one. The next three have to do with roads in Girdwood. Two of them are changes to the roads in Girdwood that make it more consistent with the recently adopted South Town Site Master Plan, and that was those changes were approved by the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. I would note that I did go down there twice to talk with them, and they were going to write a letter of non-objection, but it has not arrived. Then map labels are missing, and then the last one on page 56 is to amend the table to indicate what is currently the case up in Birchwood, that it's basically an overpass over the Glen Highway is actually a piece of arterial street where it's got collectors on both sides. And so just kind of making the table, one of the big things I really tried to do with this update was make sure that the tables and the maps were very consistent with each other, and so that's just a correction there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. McConnell. That was quite helpful. Mr. Pruse.
All right, we'll give this a shot. I move to approve Municipality of Anchorage case number 2011-115, Official Streets and Highways Plan, draft 2011, with staff recommended changes as handout on page 1 and 2, with the exception on page 2, middle paragraph where it says delete, we'll delete change Northern Lights Boulevard from Postmark Drive to Arrow Drive from minor arterial to 1B neighborhood collector.
This motion was seconded by Stacy Dean. Are there comments and discussion on this motion? Ms. Dean.
No, I'm totally good with everything.
All right. Commissioner Wilson.
Hello.
There you are.
I can't get it to go on. There we go.
On page 11 of the official, whatever it is, Official Streets and Highways Plan.
Mm-hmm.
Minor arterials. In support of the exception outlined by the mover and the second regarding Northern Lights Boulevard from Postmark to Arrow, retaining that as a minor arterial. In support of that, I'd like to put on the record a couple of things from the plan. Quote, minor arterial streets are intended to primarily to move through traffic, but they also provide an important land access function. Access should be at block intervals wherever possible. Minor arterials also connect with and carry traffic parallel to major arterial supplementing. Minor arterials are less concentrating and are less concentrated traffic generating areas such as neighborhood shopping areas and schools. They distribute traffic and so forth. These streets carry 10 to 20,000 vehicles a day. The guidelines for minor arterials. Guidelines, the first is minor arterials serve as the distribution link between major arterials and lower classification streets such as collector or residential streets. In that regard, this, as I look at the map, these provide, this section of Northern Lights provides a flow-through from more active areas, major arterials, further to the east on Northern Lights, to looping around through the airport, Postmark Drive, and going back to International Airport, which is a major arterial. And so that loop is important for the proper functioning of a highway, a road system. And so that is to me a very important factor here in providing the ability for commercial trucks, while not encouraging them, but allowing for the possibility, as the industrial uses change over the years, for that to happen, but to minimize it in respect to the neighborhood. Minimize it in ways such as the airport's discussions with the FedEx and UPS companies to try to guide as much of their truck traffic along International Airport Road and not along West Northern Lights Boulevard. So I think it's important for us to maintain a kind of a big picture here, but trying to respect the needs of the locales, the neighborhoods through which this road travels. It is a minor arterial and should remain as such.
Thank you for those additional comments. Within the motion to approve, this is really to make recommendations to the Assembly, and so regarding adoption of the plan revision. So it's not necessarily approval, it is recommendations the Secretary has pointed out to me. All right, but are there any other comments? Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing none, these recommendations are forwarded to the Assembly. Thank you. We're now ready for case 2011-115. The petitioner is the Municipality of Anchorage. The request is, 2011-118. Municipality of Anchorage, general land use planning issues for AMATs.
Good evening. My name is Craig Lyon. I'm the...
Madam Chair, before we get started, the last case that we just had was just advisory information for the Assembly. Is this same case, this next case, is it the same way also? I'd like to know what we need to be inputting at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a real good question. And yes, this is advisory as I understand it. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you.
My name is Craig Lyon. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager for the city and also the AMATS Coordinator. I'll give you, I know some of the folks here are new to the committee and some of you haven't dealt with AMATS stuff too often, so let me try to help you understand a little bit more about what AMATS is and why we even come before you folks. AMATS is the federally recognized metropolitan planning organization for the Anchorage area. What we do is we help coordinate, figure out how to spend the federal transportation dollars that come into the city. and we spend those funds on highways, roads, transportation enhancements like trails and bike paths and things of that nature, and also things that improve air quality and mitigate congestion. And that last category typically involves transit, buses and things of that nature. So AMATS is a group that's made up of the state with DOT and DEC, the Environmental Conservation Department, and the municipality in the form of the mayor and a couple assembly members. That's what the policy committee is. And we decide how to spend between $20 and $30 million a year. And so it's a chunk of change. And as a matter of fact, over the 20-year time frame, we're looking at probably $3 billion of not just federal funds, but state funds and local funds and all the sort of funds that we might use to, make sure that the roadway congestion doesn't get any worse in the next 20 years and all that sort of stuff. So, but again, we do several planning projects, and one of the ones is that Erica that just presented to you. It's the Official Streets and Highways Plan. But we do this 20-year plan, which is the Long Range Transportation Plan, and you guys will have a work session on that. That was the one that was supposed to be, or we thought it was scheduled for tonight, but actually is scheduled for December 12th. You'll have a work session on that transportation plan, that 20-year plan. We also do a 4-year construction plan, and I believe I've come here before you folks with an amendment to that program. It's a 4-year plan. It's construction. It's which roads, which trails, which buses, all that sort of stuff are we going to do in the next 4 years. What we have before you tonight is our Unified Planning Work Program. This is the 2-year plan for what the 4 municipal transportation planning staff are going to do, what projects we're going to work on, what plans. It would be this Official Streets and Highways plan that we're working on. It could be what kind of stuff we're going to assist long-range planning with, whether it's the East Anchorage Plan or the Government Hill Neighborhood Plan or any kind of area plans that we might work on, the Hillside District Plan that you folks looked at previously. So this UPWP is the 2-year, specifically what kind of work product my 4 staff is going to do in the next 2 years. And the reason we come before Planning and Zoning is when we come before you, you guys serve as our AMATS Citizens Advisory Committee. You folks deal with all sorts of land use issues anywhere in the Anchorage Bowl and Chugach Eagle River. Our boundaries stop at Potter Marsh, but you guys can look at plans that go down to Girdwood too. So you're here. In our case, we come before you as you get your recommendations, your advice on things that we bring before you, but it's as the AMATS Citizens Advisory Committee. And again, it's because your makeup is a cross-reference of the municipality, different walks of life, etc. But the idea is you're supposed to be speaking for the citizens on our plans that we come before you. So what this is, again, is the 2-year plan of what kind of things we're going to do in the next 2 years. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I can go over details. I can attempt to answer questions that you might have. But I can get down the weeds or not down in the weeds. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Commissioner Pruz.
Yeah, thank you. This 2-year plan or work program, I guess what you're calling it, is this the? I see it's from staff requests the Planning and Zoning Commission review and recommend approval to this policy committee. Is this the municipality's administration's position also? Has this been reviewed by the administration?
Through the chair, Mr. Pruz, yes. This is we create this document with our staff and then with our department director, and then we review it with the administration as well to say these are the things that we're going to spend federal dollars on in the next 2 years for transportation planning efforts. So yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, hearing no more questions, I move that the
For the record, the public hearing is now open. Would anyone who would like to testify please come forward? Seeing and hearing no one, the public hearing is now closed. What is the wish of the commission? Commissioner Pruse.
I move that the case number 2011-118, Municipality Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as capacity of the AMAT Citizen Advisory Committee, approve the 2013 Unified Planning Work Program as presented by staff.
And it was seconded by Commissioner Parks. Are there any additional comments? Is there any objection? Are there any findings of, I don't know that we don't need findings for this. All right. Okay. Seeing and hearing none, this. All right. There are no appearance requests, reports from the chair and the secretary. I've been asked by a couple of commissioners to discuss the Title 21 calendar. I think you have all seen the email that was circulated earlier today about some recommended dates. I think we need to have some discussion about that. The majority of the commission members are new to Title 21, and it is the most important document that we will be reviewing and voting on probably during your term. It's my recommendation that we have a history and general overview followed up with a second work session regarding the provisionally adopted chapters, comparing them to the existing Title 21, and then another work session prior to the opening of the public hearing regarding the amendments to the provisionally adopted chapters as presented by this current administration. I know that some of you have other additional comments that you would like to make. And so does the Secretary. Mr. Parks.
I've got a couple of comments on this. One is I'm real concerned about us all having the same basic knowledge of Title 21. And it's a very sophisticated project that has been 6 or 7 years in the making. And I know there's been some concerns about changes that have been made to something that was provisionally approved but has not been adopted. It would be helpful to me if the staff would come up with a top 20 or 25 issues that they see, so we don't spend our time on issues that are minute issues, but to try to address the large issues up front. I too would like to have a work session that says, here's the history, a 20-minute history or 30-minute history of Title 21, where we got to where we are today. Then I would like to see staff come and say, here is what's been presented for changes, here's the ones we can live with, here are the 20 or 25 issues that we have, we need to address these. These are our number one priorities. To me, that would make it much easier so that we're not digging in the minutia as we go through this laborious task that we're going to have. And I don't want to be pushed through it. I feel a couple of things that we've had in the last 2 or 3 meetings. One is this capital budget, in my opinion. We had absolutely no information until we came to the meeting within an hour of having to make a decision. And I think that's total injustice to what's going on. And to have documents laid in front of us during the meeting to me, is not fair to us. We don't have time to review it. It would also be helpful to me if we got our documents on a Friday, 10 days out from when the meetings are. I have a very busy schedule, as most of you do, and it would be nice if I had that for 2 weekends. That's when I do this, is a Sunday afternoon generally. And it would also be helpful if we got those documentations and they were correct, so we didn't have questions with them. And don't have a lot of input at the last minute that we have to regurgitate. Enough said.
I couldn't agree with you more. It has been a very frustrating experience. I am also concerned that although we decided not to have a monthly directors meeting, we haven't seen the director now for 8 months or so, and almost, and I think we need to have some time with him. So I will take all these concerns and in the form of a memo. And CC everyone on them. Other concerns and comments, Dana.
Yeah, I agree with the having the director around. I also would think that we would need consistent staff, same staff people for the topic. I notice as of today, when whatever topic comes up, they're here and they're gone. I think this commission needs someone that basically fields all this stuff, consistently stays through the entire meeting, and as these things come up, they can address and get back to our chair or vice chair, so that it doesn't put us in another way more work. If someone was here listening to all this, you wouldn't have to write a memo.
Yes.
And it would be consistent throughout our meetings. I agree with Mr. Parks that Title 21 is important. There is a lot for all of us to gather information, to be fed by a funnel, so to speak. I'm very concerned of making decisions based on lack of knowledge. And so I would suggest I agree with what's been said and add the ability of the staff. Again, there's 5 of us that are fairly new, and that we need, lack of a better term, more handling.
I think what you're proposing is that someone from the planning department be assigned specifically to the Planning and Zoning Commission and come to our meetings and our work sessions on a regular basis, in addition to the various planners that are here for a specific case. I can also tell you that in the past year, I believe that there have been times when cases have been presented by a planner who was not the planner who wrote the case. And that doesn't seem to make any sense to me whatsoever. So it's just a matter of convenience at that particular point in time. So not only do we need more handling, but we need to be less spoon-fed. Yeah. Other comments? Richard?
You know, I agree with what's been said so far, and I think it's important on us to think about time here. The holiday season gets really messy for having people attend, and for the staff, too. Staff tells me that they've been just mired in Title 21, and that's why we don't see as many staff people, and they don't stick around. That being said, we do need to be careful about what we ask them to do, and I think we are being prudent and not asking more than we need. But I think we need to get with the planning director and a named, assigned staff person who will stick with us meeting after meeting very soon, and not wait for Thanksgiving to roll around. I don't know what everybody else's travel schedule is, but many of us will be gone for 2-3 weeks. And just during the time when we're supposed to be getting geared up on Title 21 and making some reviews, these are tough issues. So I think it's urgent that we get connectivity between the planning department director and this commission.
Let me see if everyone is here for the next week or two. Let me see if we can't arrange for a meeting with the director to in-person voice some of these concerns as well. I can give him an idea of what it is that we want to talk about. But I think it's important for him to hear from everybody regarding these matters. So let me see what I can do as far as getting a meeting scheduled. Okay. Other comments? Yes.
Just for clarification, you received a new calendar this evening. If you did any calendaring off of that yellow calendar, go through it again because there were errors and there have been corrections made to this. In addition to that, you will see that the work session, just for clarification, addressing some of your concerns on November 14th, the Title 21 rewrite work session is to be a project overview on the Title 21. And they are looking at the December 1st work session to be a review of the proposed amendments. December 5th. I'm sorry, my error. And then then you would have the hearing for Title 21. These are tentative dates, by the way, as is the email that they sent you as they try and work the schedule out. Your hearing on Title 21 would be December 12th, and then on January 9th, the work session before the meeting where you would deliberate is to be a review, questions and answers and issues response type from the December 12th hearing.
This is unrealistic.
That's why.
Won't work.
That's why this email also came out with the additional dates.
I don't think.
It just came out. It came out at like 7 o'clock tonight. The email that.
It was very
yeah.
late.
What does it say?
Do you want me to read it, Connie?
Since we're on the topic here.
Okay. The email, which was very late, it came out at 4:30 today. It was direction to send the attached information to the PZC regarding their availability for work sessions on the Title 21 rewrite. And attached was a list of dates and times, proposed work sessions, running from November 14th through December 9th. So
what's the rush? We've been doing this for 7 years. Does anyone know what the rush is? Is it a political agenda?
Well, we can change it.
Yes, we can.
Madam Chair, you can change it. That's right.
And Madam Chair, on the email, it lists several dates there, but all at noon. So with what's on the calendar, that gives us 2.5 hours. Then you throw in a couple lunch breaks, productive time, 45 minutes. So again, how many years has this thing been in the making? And we're going to give 3 or 4 hours of work sessions to become completely caught up and be able to make valid recommendations. I'm not as smart as the rest of you. I can't get there.
All I know is I'm not going to be here on January 9th, so I'll put that on the record right now. I'll be out of town. Yeah, it's almost you get, and I don't think it's intended, but you almost get the impression that we're a necessary evil. That it's a step they have to go through and deal with, but they don't embrace what we do, or embrace the concept of the public appointed planning commission with the powers that it has. And it may be the unintended message, but I tend to get that based on the staff people that come and what they do and who comes and how we get the information, when we get the information about the plant, setting up the agenda. All those things tend to add up to this conclusion that I have, unintentionally so, but that's how I see it, and I don't think that's what we want. And we're spending our time, because we're all busy with that. That's kind of how I guess to sum it up. It's kind of how I'm envisioning it. I've been here. Well, Rich, when did we get here? January last year, or January this year? December, January, and the planning director has been here for about 30 minutes of the first meeting, and that's it. Well, there's a lot of history with the director in those groups that I would sure love to be able to tap into on a conversation or as a committee as a whole or something. But Connie, when we're given the information, at the time we're given the information, that's when we start to develop our questions. Yes. It's not at a luncheon. That's okay. Here's the big picture, but we don't have anything in front of us to understand the history. We don't know what to ask them. Right. I could see a lunch with you and Terry to talk about scheduling and issues, from the commission as a whole, but that institutional knowledge and that interaction that we don't seem to have, whether it's him as his assistant or his director, I'm not sure. That's the part that I think is very valuable that we don't have. Because when I went to those lunches, it was meet people. I haven't met you before, and what do you do? And then they show up for 30 minutes to actually read what they're, and that's it. And then answer questions, and that's it, and they're gone.
Okay, so the Planning and Zoning Commission is now in recess. Staff is here, and you guys come and go. We're sort of like the politicians, except we're not elected, so. Anything else? Yes, Jill.
They did ask me to at least poll you on the work session next Monday night that they have scheduled. Or it's scheduled for next Monday night on the title.
Yeah.
And the question was, who would be able to make a work session next Monday night?
Yeah, we're all here.
Okay, everybody can make
Yeah,
Monday.
yeah.
Okay.
Terry, are you here? Okay. And I don't know where Mr. Fredericks is. I thought he was attending. Yeah, yeah.
And as for polling on the other dates, maybe we better, do you want to hold off on that?
I think that, Terry, do you want to come have a meeting with the director with you?
I think we need to get a game plan.
Yeah.
Before we start making dates, I think we have to have, what do we want?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me to start picking dates if we don't know what the end result.
I am flabbergasted that we're trying to do Title 21 during the holiday season. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We should be picking this up in the second week in January and in February. I think there's been some public pressure put on to have a public hearing, and I think that's, we're probably the guinea pigs here, taking the public hearing and getting it off the back of the assembly prior to the holiday. So give it to the P&Z Commission to deal with.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and I think a lot of that is because of the mayor's using the outside consultant. So that's what the public testimony, a lot of the public testimony will be about those changes when we don't even know what, I don't even know what the baseline was, much less the changes.
Right.
So I will be totally disconnected from the public hearing without significant
Well,
change.
and that's why I think we need at least 3 sessions prior to having a public hearing. At least 3 sessions.
I concur, at least 3. Yep.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. 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 No, not yet.
But they can be.
Well, different subject. I'd like to congratulate Connie and Terry as our esteemed leadership, and know they will handle us well.
Yeah. For adjournment, please. All right, Dana, thank you. And Terry, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.